So the other thing, folks, is our job is to determine whether they qualify for a variance or not. That's based on the laws of Massachusetts and what the findings are. It's not what the project is. And I know we're still going to open up for conversation about, one of the things is for the public good. So we're going to talk about that. I think that's going to be an important point. But our job is not to vote on whether it's a gas station or an ice cream shop or whatever. It's whether the lot itself qualifies for a variance. So that's what our job is, not to determine what it's used, because if it is determined to be qualified for a variance, it doesn't have to be a gas station, as John was saying. We just have to determine, this board's job is to determine whether it qualifies for a variance or not. But we're very interested in the public comment. Obviously, this is a topic that has raised a great deal of interest. And we will listen to everybody, but I do ask, just don't say exactly, like town meeting. We're doing a dead stop at 10 o'clock, and if we need to continue, we'll continue. But I don't think it serves anybody well if it's just the same voice over and over again. If you're going up to speak, we'll give you the 2 minutes, but I ask you to present something that hasn't been presented yet. Thank you.
Okay, with that, now that we're on HCAM, I'd like to open this meeting of the Board of Appeals, this being October 9th, and it's just after 7 p.m. My name is John Catino, and let me confirm that everybody is here on the board. Okay, we've got Arnold, Sean, John. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have 5 members. Okay. We are not on video conference. Everybody, the meeting materials have been distributed on our website. We're going to turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, we cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite board members to prevent any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to, oh gosh, we don't have any phones on here. This meeting will have public comment. I'll first ask for people that want to speak and for names and addresses so we can have something in order, at an orderly fashion. And then I will call up each person by name. Each person will be allowed 2 minutes for any comments. So, that being said, the Town of Hopkinton Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear all persons interested in the uniform application for a special permit petition for variance filed by Route 85 Realty Corporation, 8 Uxbridge Road, Mendon, Mass. The petitioner is requesting a use variance to allow a country store and filling station to be located in an agricultural zoning district at 290 West Main Street, Hopkinton, Massachusetts. The property is owned by Alan O'Connor, trustee, O'Connor Family Living Trust, 52 School Street, Hopkinton, Mass., and is shown on Assessors Map R28, Block 50, Lot 1. The hearing will be held at the Hopkins Senior Center, 20 Mayhew Street, Hopkinton, Massachusetts. For additional information, please email the ZBA at hopkintonma.gov, call the Department of Land Use and Planning and Permitting at 508-497-9745, or check the online meeting calendar and agenda for this meeting at hopkintonma.gov. The Hopkins Senior Center is handicapped accessible. This legal notice is also posted in the Massachusetts Newspapers Publishers Association MMPA website at masspublicnotices.org. John Catino, Chair and Clerk, regarding 25009. So, Route 85, would you please begin your presentation?
Thank you very much. My name is Neil Bingham. I represent the applicant, Route 85. As you mentioned, we're here today on the applicant's application for a use variance concerning property at 290 West Main Street. By the request for a variance, the applicants are seeking approval from the board to allow a farm stand country store use with a filling station on property that is currently zoned agricultural. Our team had a couple of things in mind when they were thinking about developing this project. It's really, we wanted to come up with something that really gave a rural look and feel to a project. And, after having discussions with the property owners, the O'Connors, we were reminded of places like Amato Farms, where you used to be able to walk up to a farm stand, purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. And while those are still available, because I've been to one in the last 2 weeks, they are fewer and further between than they ever used to be, and they're simply not lasting. So we thought that that would be a really good fit for what we have in mind here. Now, we're here on a request for a variance, and I understand, and my client understands, that this is a discretionary permit that we're asking for, and we fully comprehend that the discretion is in your hands. So as we think about that, we have to think about what we're going to provide to you. And what we're trying to provide is a project, quite frankly, that people in the town of Hopkinton can be proud of, and we think that we have done that. But it's also our job to focus on the section of the bylaw, section 125 for variances, and to ensure that we provide to you evidence that we've met each and every element of that section, and we believe that we have done that. Now, if at the end of our presentation we've done what we promised to do, we're hoping that this board will exercise its discretion and allow the requested variance application. So just to sort of set up what we're planning for today, I'm just going to go through a little maybe summary discussion of what it is that we're about to present to you, some of the evidence that relates to the elements, and then we're going to have several people get up and present. The first that will be presenting are Alan and Kathy O'Connor. They're back here. They're the owners of the property, and they're gonna talk a little bit about what it is that brought them here and quite frankly caused this relationship to exist where they're trying to sell property to us. Next, we'll have Kevin Meehan. Kevin is sitting next to me. Kevin is the owner of the applicant. He's got a lot of experience in the field that we're talking about here, and he'll tell you what we have in mind for the project. And then our last presenter will be Sean Reardon of Tetra Tech. Sean is sitting at the end of the table. He's our civil engineer, and he's really going to speak to some of the elements of the variance statute, including those that relate to the soil conditions and other things that are present on the property and cause us to believe that we have the right to, at least to be before you under this section of the bylaw. So the O'Connors will speak for themselves, but what they want to get across to you is why it is that it is simply impracticable for them to consider a use of the property that would be among those uses that are currently allowed under the bylaw. And they and Sean will show to you where the land is very steep, where the grades are very difficult to build on, where there are wetlands, which have the effect of minimizing the amount of space on the property that is actually buildable. And that said, where that ultimately brings any buildable component of the property is to the corner of School Street and West Main Street, where we're also, whatever is built there, let's say a house was built there, the primary visual reference for anyone looking out the window will be a very large water tower, which is there's nothing wrong with the water tower. It serves a very great function, but it's very difficult to believe, and the O'Connor's experience is that no one wants to build a house there. No one wants to raise the family on that lot. There are other lots that they could build on, there are other houses that they could build on, and all have passed on the purchase of the property for that kind of use. And that really speaks to the financial hardship that the O'Connors find themselves in. They are now in a situation where they're not as young as they used to be, but they've run a business for 36 years that was an agricultural use and is a little more difficult to be able to do on a day-to-day basis when you reach a certain age. And they have reached that age and they just can't do the things that they used to do, nor can they find the kind of help that they need to continue running their business. So what is it that they want to do? They want to continue to be residents of the town of Hopkinton. That's what they want to do. But quite frankly, it's getting to be too expensive for them, and so they needed a solution. And the solution was to sell some of their land so that they could simply finance the rest of their life, sit down in Hopkinton in their home, and eat, sleep, and play with the grandkids, do all the things that you and I take for granted. But they're now in a situation where, quite frankly, they're suffering a serious financial hardship that requires some kind of relief. And while they very much wanted to, because of they have an agricultural / farming background, they would love to have continued to use this property for something like that, just to continue their legacy. They can't, and they've tried, and they've tried, and they've been told no, 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 again and again and again. And the developers or brokers who have spoken to, when they think about the kinds of things that they would be willing to do on that particular lot, the answer always seems to be about the same, which is some kind of commercial use. Maybe if we combine this lot and the very place that they would like to live out their days, maybe they would build a condominium or something along that lines. But when they had conversations with any potential interested suitors about doing something that was actually allowed by the bylaw, the answer was always, absolutely no. And this is where the O'Connors find themselves, and it is not a very good place. And we're just looking to really get them some relief. And quite frankly, by this application, we on this side, we're the developer, may be able to help them in that regard. And we think that it's fair, and we think that it's what a community might want for another member of their community who's in need. So the next element of the variance standard, so I'm sort of just touching on the hardship element of the standard there, but we'll put more meat on the bones there. The next element of the variance standard requires us to show that there's no substantial detriment to the public good. And Kevin is going to speak to that, and he's going to speak to the kinds of time and effort that he's put into this project and his ideas for the project. And quite frankly, his issues, he's given an awful lot of thought about safety and other things that have been raised here. And I do appreciate the chairman mentioning that we are here on a variance standard. That's what we're doing. But I think it is worth emphasizing again, this is stop number one. And that we are going to be before, if the board exercises its discretion in our favor, we're going to be before several other boards who are going to be looking at an awful lot of things, including the planning board, including full-blown traffic studies, which will be peer reviewed at our expense, to ensure that this is actually results in a safe project. And we have to positively or negatively, we'll have an opportunity to speak again at those meetings if they're unsatisfied or satisfied and would like to further support our project. So finally, the intent of the bylaw will also remain intact if this is allowed. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do here is are multiple uses that are already allowed under various bylaw sections, but simply not in an agricultural, in the agricultural district. So the idea of these uses is consistent with the bylaw, just not here. But that's what the variance standard really is about. And then when I think about the intent of any bylaw, whether it's the general bylaw or the zoning bylaw, to me, it comes down to, health and safety. And we have, and we'll be talking about what it is that we're going to do here to ensure that, ensure that the intent of the bylaw is satisfied. Now, I try to understand what it is that others may be troubled by in this with respect to our application, and I don't know the answer to that, but I think I may find out as this hearing goes along. But it occurs to me that it's not because someone wants to build a country store, and it's not because someone wants to have a farm stand, and it's not because someone wants to have a blueberry patch where we're picking blueberries, but that what we have is we have 4 gas pumps in the back. And I can assure you that the technology that is utilized for today, and this will be, and my client knows more about this than I do, is not the technology of the 1950s and the 1960s where gas tanks were put in the ground and then there might have been a little prayer at the end and hopefully it was going to last for a few years. These are very high-tech tanks, double-walled tanks with alarms that really that really provide the kind of protection that I think that anyone who was concerned and deserves to be concerned that this might be helpful in having them understand that we really are looking out for the health and safety of the community as we continue in the development of our project. So with that, I would like to introduce the first two presenters, and if you don't mind, I'm going to have Catherine and Alan O'Connor get up together, and they just have a few words that they would like to share. So, what is the best thing to do? Have them sit here?
Yeah.
Yeah, or you can maybe move the microphone over there if she wants to sit right there, so you don't have to get up. Let's move.
Hello, I'm Kathy O'Connor, 52 School Street. I have stage 4 cancer, and I'm deeply saddened by the outpouring of hostility, extremism, and excessive opposing signs. Many of you are my friends, my customers, and neighbors. All of your words and actions have long-lasting effects. Be kind to one another.
Alan, if you can just get a little closer.
Hello, everybody. I am the owner of 290 West Main Street as the trustee of O'Connor Family Trust. My wife, Kathy O'Connor, and I, along with my daughter, Kristen, have owned and operated Evergreen Haven Garden Center for 36 years. We were unable to keep the garden center going for 2 reasons. My wife and daughter have been dealing with serious medical issues, and due to our advancing age, we are not able to do a lot of the physical work necessary to keep things going, nor afford to hire employees to help out. The health issues that we are experiencing are not new and have caused us to find a way to sell the front lot and keep our home on the back. Over the last several years, we have been in discussions with several real estate brokers and developers who are interested in purchasing our property. We have an emotional attachment to this property and would love to see someone buy it for purposes of continuing our garden center or some other agricultural use, but not one potential buyer was willing to make an offer on my property for purposes of a farm or agricultural use. nor would anybody make an offer to purchase our front lot for a residential use where we are seeking the variance. Some said they were considering a multi-unit condominium complex like the one at Pinecrest Village across the street. Others said they were thinking about one or more commercial buildings for things like warehousing or office space. When I asked others about potentially building a house on the front lot, the answer was always no. They were not willing to invest because of the wetlands and elevation changes on the west side of the property, which reduces the usable size of the lot, and would force them to put the house close to the intersection. They also thought that a lot would not be appealing to buyers, especially families, because of the looming water tank across the street and the way in which the intersection has come to look more commercial than residential. So,
Thank you, Ralph.
yeah, thank you for letting me speak.
So if we could, we'll just have Kevin talk about the project that we have in mind for the property. Go ahead, Kevin.
So, I drove by there for years, and I noticed that,
He just introduced them.
sorry, so I'm Kevin Meehan, I'm the applicant. So, I had driven by there for years. I had been a customer of Alan Cathy occasionally. And then I noticed that it was closed down. And I had been approached by Jeff at Angels through mutual friends that we have about him wanting to sell his property. But it was a much bigger piece of property. So I approached Al and his wife and asked them if they were interested in selling, and they said they'd been trying to sell. And they asked me what I wanted to do there, and I told them I'd like to put a country store. And they asked me what my thoughts of a country store was. And I thought it was something that looked country. It was a log cabin, or it was a cedar building, with a farm stand with locally grown goods, like the Motto Farms, with local honey and local dairy. And, at my home in Millis, we raise cattle. We've never actually sold it to the public, but we raise Black Angus. And I thought it would be a great place to roll out locally grown and farmed meat and vegetables along with a country store. I saw a lot of stuff online that said, we sell all junk at what we consider to be a country store. We have a whole hardware department. If the hinge broke on your screen door, there's a good chance we have it. If you need a screw that's 1/4 of an inch or 4.5 inches long, there's a good chance that we have it. If you don't have the right bit, because there's star bits now, and there's Phillips head bits and regular screwdriver bits, there's a good chance that we have it. If you need a 50-foot extension cord or a 100-foot extension cord, we probably have it. If you want gluten-free or non-gluten-free, we probably have it. If you're looking for something to do with your children or your grandchildren, if you want a board game, we probably have it. This town lost the Hallmark store downtown. I think it was a great part of the town. You lost the small grocery store across the street and put in a CVS. We're the un-CVS. We're the un-Cumberland Farms. We're the un-Noria. We're family-owned and operated. Like, my family is truly involved. I have 5 children, 3 of whom work with me every day. They hate the controversy of anything like this going on, so they're hiding tonight. I think that we could be a benefit to the town. I notice that I do a lot of driving. I own other properties. I own other businesses. I don't see many areas where I drive through where the meridian, the middle line is like divided off like I see in Hopkinton. It tells me that there is definitely a traffic issue. I assume that it's people coming from up on top of the hill, coming down and trying to turn around and make a U-turn. And I think that probably happens regularly, and I question if this wouldn't cut that down. And I never expected, everyone says, I should have went and did and this is what I read online, I should have went and did a a traffic study. I should have done an environmental study. As I understand it from the attorney, like, this was our first step. So our first step was to come to the board and see if we could get a variance. And after that, the planning board would say, we want to do a fiscal impact study, we want to do a traffic study, we want to do an environmental study. Whatever it is, we understand that we would have to do that. We understand that there's a committee that would have to look at any type of structure that we wanted to build, and it would have to pass muster through that committee. Jeff had told me that he was the chairman of that committee. He told me he didn't like the roof that we showed him in the pictures. We told him we could change the roof. But I just thought that we would bring a different element. We would bring something that the town lost. We'd bring a little bit of that grocery store, that small-time grocery store. I know you have a new one down the street. We'd bring back something like you had with the Hallmark store, with the cards and with the gifts, and you could find something there for everybody, from a newborn baby. We have Steiff beers in there. So I also read it was Chinese junk. We have teddy bears in there that we pay $700 for. We might sell 2 a year, but they're there if someone wants it. It's everything that I believe a country store would want. At Halloween, at this time of year right now, we sell pumpkins, and the front of the store is loaded up with pumpkins. We'll sell over 15,000 pumpkins. I mean, it truly is a country farm stand type store. And I'd love to know if the board has any questions about it, anything I could answer.
Although the one thing you might also want to just talk about is the other services that you provide with respect to the gas.
So this would be a full-service gas station where you would come in, they would wash your windows, they would pump your gas, not some of the time, all of the time, not some of the pumps. Up in Mendon, we have both full-serve and self-serve. We just opened up another smaller gas station, much smaller, in Upton. It's a full-serve gas station. We put in all the safety precautions like a self-serve, but it is a full-serve station. That's how we intend on running it. All our employees are uniformed. Doesn't make a big difference to you, but with the customers coming in and out, they know who the employees are. And it's a full-service station where they would wash your window when you come in, and everybody sort of knows your name. And along with that, we took like half of that property and we turned it into a blueberry farm. So again, there were articles online or people making remarks that was just, part of the shtick to get it approved. I just planted 2,800 blueberry plants on 8 acres of land on North Avenue in Mendon. Everything that I have is centered around my own personal properties, is centered around farming and ranching. We have pigs, sheep, chickens, peacocks. My children grew up with them. We have horses. This isn't just like a game to me. This is something that I think could be a reality. It's part of a bigger plan for us. We were also before the planning board in Mendon to open up a small, locally owned grocery store. We bought a small chain, a couple of stores, and we're gonna try to change them around, source everything locally, all the meat locally, everything organic, all the vegetables locally, all the fruits locally, as much as we can. It's gonna be something very different, and we thought that we could get on a smaller scale up here to the town of Hopkinton. We thought it would be well received. And we really were until the day before the last meeting. We did hear a peep, and the day before the meeting, it kind of blew up on us.
So, we'd like to do whatever pleases the board here, but if there are any questions you wanted to ask based on what you've heard so far, we'd be happy to take them now, or we could have our engineer continue the presentation, and we could do questions again. We're happy to do what you would like.
Yeah, we'll continue and
That's my cue. Sean Reardon, I'm civil engineer with Tetra Tech. We're based in Marlborough, Massachusetts. Been there for about 10 years. Prior to that, we were in Natick for 30 years. So grew up here in Franklin, live in Littleton, work in Marlboro, so these are all communities that I'm familiar with and I spend a lot of time in. Really quickly, just wanted to cover a few things. First is sort of identify the existing conditions on the site and sort of explain some of the things that are so challenging about making it work for what the allowed uses are. Up on the board, you have a picture of the site. Along the left side you'll see some dots. Those are wetland flags. So that entire wetland. In Hopkinton here, you have a fairly aggressive, fairly restrictive wetlands bylaw. Basically 75 feet from the edge of that wetland you're not allowed to put a building in. So effectively what that does is it takes about 40% of the site, and frankly the best 40% of the site is in terms of placement from the intersection, and makes it sort of unusable as anything that involves a building. So that's probably the principal sort of hardship that we have is because of those wetland soils, because of the steep slopes adjacent to it, because of the wetland setbacks. It really pushes any developable when your only allowed use is a single-family home or an agricultural use, pushing it close to the intersection is, I'm sure you can imagine, probably not the best thing in the world. So that restriction that we have along the whole west side is probably one of the principal characteristics that related to soils and topography that make it untenable. Second topographical condition, we consider the intersection itself, the signalized intersection on the highway, a topographical condition because it's part of the boundary condition of the site. Putting any of those uses adjacent to those high density uses and high traffic areas, again, as Alan mentioned, it's just really not tenable as a single family home. I would also argue that even its current use as a garden center, probably on the side of sort of less than safe because of their parking backs almost right out into West Main Street. Parking's actually partly in the right of way. Access isn't great. It's right on top of the intersection. What we can do is we can take these things and with a more appropriate use to those kind of conditions, we can come up with a solution that makes that work. If you could go to the next page. So that's what we've proposed. We've looked at everything that we have against us, which is the wetlands, the traffic, the intersection conditions, and looked at some of the other issues around the community that have proven to be a challenge over the course of the past years. Principal among them is the traffic conditions on the east side of 495. Anybody that travels this corridor knows. I just had a coworker this morning talk to me about the signs he saw out on the street. He comes from Upton, and I critical for people to have to go, if they're going to 495 from the west and they want to get gas and coffee, they've got to go past where they want to go. That U-turn and then get back to 495. What we're trying to do is bring a service that makes sense in this location and actually makes sense for the same things that make it untenable from the standpoint of a single-family home or an agricultural use. So being close to the intersection, being close to a busy intersection, having access near that intersection, those are all great things for a country store and for a filling station. We think that this is an appropriate use for this location. I mean, bottom line is these are exactly where you want this type of use. I think your zoning and all your other situations in town where we have similar places on the east side, they're very similarly located facilities. What we're looking to do is do something on the west side that speaks to those same needs. Some of the key features, I want to explain those, is trying to keep the scale. As you can imagine, Kevin's got a lot of passion for this kind of stuff. He really does some cool, wonderful things that are absolutely sort of contradictory to current trends. Yeah, I think it's kind of unsatisfying seeing new development go up and it's the same Cumberland Farms, although it's pretty, right? It looks great, but it's the same one I saw in the next town over. When I see a new mobile station, yeah, they're clean and they look great, but it's the same one I see everywhere. I can guarantee you will never see another place like this because Kevin, that's what Kevin does, and it's meticulously cared for. It's creatively designed. It's unbelievable commitment to finish quality and things like that. So we're excited about doing something at this location that harkens back to sort of the traditional history of these sort of old rural corridors. This is exactly where you would have seen a country store 100 years ago, right? I think Angel's right across the street, perfect example. This is exactly where you'd see that kind of use, perfect location for it. The scale is consistent with the number of buildings that are out there. There's about 4,000 square feet of building out there right now, mostly greenhouses. The building that we're proposing is 4,000 square feet. Canopy area is about another 4,000 or 5,000 square feet too, but we wouldn't consider that a building. It's just a covered canopy for the pumps. The same amount of sort of square footage coverage of the site. One of the key factors here is we have our access to the roads located at the very perimeter of the property. So each one of our entrances is more than 150 feet from the intersection. Currently, the entrance is right on the intersection. So very, very big improvement to safety. The other thing too is there's no stormwater management features on site, right? Right now we have a landscape materials selling operation. We had other sort of agricultural uses, no stormwater controls. This would be completely compliant with current Massachusetts stormwater standards. So in terms of the water quality at the wetland, in terms of the safety of the wetland, all substantive improvements. The other thing that we do is it's more centrally located and more efficiently laid out, so we have a lot more room for landscaping. So currently there's less than 1,000 square feet of what I would consider landscaping on the site. In this plan, there's almost 20,000 square feet. Really, really pretty sort of pollinator gardens and grass area right at the corner of the intersection. So your first image will be a meticulously designed country store fronted by a very, very, very sort of appealing landscape. I was just driving into the senior center and I was impressed by the hair salon that's right on the end of Mayhew Street. And their attention to their landscape was exactly what sort of we're hoping for our site. So anyway, the idea being is, most cases you'd see, the first thing you'd see would be the gas pumps, right? In this case, we have our gas pumps out in the back, closest to the O'Connor's property, so they said, yeah, that's okay, put them next to our property, so we can put the really, really pretty part of the project right on the intersection. So the long and the short of it is, what we've done is we've taken those same things that make our site really untenable for allowed uses and played them to our advantage for what we're proposing to do, and ideally to the benefit of the community and to the benefit of everybody that wants to secure these services on the east side or west side of 495. And just real quickly, John, if you can go to the next page. Just to sort of list a few of the things that to keep in mind are the building right now is about 150 feet from the western property boundary. That's 5 times the required setback. So the required side setback in this district is 30 feet. We're 150 feet from that property boundary. We're a little bit closer on the north side. That's the O'Connor's home. But even then, we have about a 20-foot landscape buffer. We meet all of our other dimensional requirements under zoning. So the only relief we're looking for is just the use, the allowance for the use. And one of the other interesting aspects, as Kevin mentioned, is that whole edge of the wetland that we really aren't allowed to put any buildings in or do any pavement in. That's going to be targeted as our blueberry patch. Yeah, it might seem like a throw-in, but it's something that's been pretty important to Kevin over the course of the last decade. Also, another signature piece is the pollinator gardens. Alan and Kathy's daughter, Kristen, from what I understand, is a butterfly breeder. So really, this is another thing to sort of continue the character of that family and continue their sort of legacy on the site. And yeah, just for clarification, there are only 4 pumps, right? 4 islands with 1 pump each, not 8 as there was previously discussed. And then just in closing, just some comparisons to the existing use. I think we mentioned that landscaping's a lot more significant. The building area is about the same. The parking setbacks are quite a bit better. So right now, the parking along both West Main Street and School Street, 0. In our case, we have our parking setback off the road. And our building setbacks, again, are well within zoning. But with that, just we're hoping that people see that the logic behind what we've done, sort of the care behind what we've done, and our intent to do something special and do something that's consistent with what I think most would hope to see in this location. Yep.
So I think that this would be a good time to take any questions from the board if you have any.
My first question, council, is the owner of the property owns trust. Petitioner doesn't own the property. So, my issue is, the trust is the owner of the property.
The trust is the owner of the property.
Petitioner does not own the property. How is the petitioner suffering a substantial hardship?
The petitioner, first of all, the current owner of the property owns the property, and to the extent that it is harmed in any way by what we're talking about here, they are able to sell that property to someone else, and we could sell it further on down the line. And to the extent that those conditions still exist, which they would, because they run with the land, all subsequent owners would be suffering from the same.
I don't disagree that if, in any case, if a variance is granted, it runs with the land and it can be sold or assigned. My issue is the petitioner is not the owner of the property. The petitioner is not suffering a hardship. The petitioner came to, for lack of a better term, came to the nuisance in the sense that the petitioner purchased it or is in negotiation to purchase a piece of property, knowing that it's in a agricultural zone which doesn't allow for the intended use. And so to seek a variance, you're saying, listen, I have a substantial hardship, okay? You don't, because you don't own the land. And to the extent that the trust has a financial hardship, their personal financial hardship is not one of the standards. So, I mean, how do you get around that standing in the first instance, before we go into any other question?
In the town of Hopkinton, when someone files an application either for variance or for a special permit, your processes and procedures allow for applicants who are coming in for whatever purpose. The applicant could be someone who's looking to buy the property, which is who we are, to come in and make arguments for variances and to make arguments for special permits. But there's one requirement. It's required by your form that the applicant has the signature, therefore the approval, the assent of the owner of the property. So therefore, when we're acting on behalf of the applicant under your own documents, we're acting here with the assent of the owner, and the owner is suffering in the manner that we are describing. Now, it's a use that the applicant is going to build, but right now it is a use that the owner is desiring to build because he is unable to, as he described, do anything else with that property. So I believe that we 100% have standing as the applicant to be here, as long as we have the signature of the owner on the application, which we do.
All right, well, my next question is, you've presented no evidence other than Mr. O'Connor claiming that people didn't want to buy the property. You've had no evidence presented that it's a substantial, now the variance, the language is substantial, okay? Hardship, to me, would mean there's no other viable use, there's no other viable buyer, okay? And to the extent that the testimony has been, well, no one wants to build a single-family home or some other type of residence, I would point your attention to, I believe it's 83 East Main Street, which has a similar situation where it's on a main intersection, where the other side of the intersection is a nursery, okay, and then you have Legacy Farms there, and they just built what appears to be renovated an old country house and built, I believe it's 3 townhome type units. But my point is, that's a viable use. It's a similarly situated property. Okay? So what evidence is there that the property was listed, had a broker, a commercial residential broker representing it over the course of a period of time, and no offers came in, or the offers that came in were so substantially low that it didn't make sense to sell? The fact that you have a commercial proposition that may prove to be more profitable than if it were a single-family home, I don't think meets the standard.
Well, first of all, you can't say that there's no evidence. You can
there isn't.
you can reach whatever conclusions you would like to reach from our
No,
evidence.
I'm
but
not reaching a conclusion. No evidence has been presented.
the evidence is the testimony of the property owner who, over the years, since
That's not evidence.
of course that's evidence.
No, he's basically saying, listen, I talked to a few brokers, no one wanted to buy it, but show me backup. Show me, if you retained a broker and the broker listed it on a commercial real estate site or through the MLS, and there, over the period of time, there was no action, or there were offers made that had major contingencies that he couldn't live with, okay? I don't see the evidence. You have to show evidence of that hardship.
Okay, well, you have evidence. You can choose to disbelieve the testimony, but you have the testimony, and it is evidence. And I think that you heard him here, and that's one of the great benefits of being face-to-face with people, so that you can assess whether or not they're telling the truth. And you're the one who's going to decide whether or not the words you heard were the truth or whether you can trust them.
I'm not saying, counsel, that your client was not telling the truth. What I'm saying is there's no evidence. There has to be, to talk to a realtor and says, well, there's no viable use for that because my client doesn't want to build something because it's too close to the intersection, okay? That's not evidence. Like, show concretely, we had an offer that was only, and I don't know what you're selling, what the trust is selling the land for. That hasn't been presented. But show me there's a substantial difference, or there's no other viable buyer for this property.
Well, I mean, there's two kinds of evidence. I mean, there's written evidence and there's oral evidence. And I think we're quibbling here a little bit, but the evidence that we're presenting to you as to the hardship here is the inability of the owner to sell that property for a use that's allowed in an agricultural district. And that is our evidence. The evidence is his testimony, and it's very, very strong. And what he said is that he has talked to multiple brokers. He's been approached on a rather regular basis by people who are interested in buying the property, and each and every time the answer is, we've got ideas for your property, but they're not anything that would be allowed use. Again, that is evidence, and we believe that it is very strong, and would ask that the board rely on the oral testimony or make a determination that they don't believe it. But it is a simple fact that he has made serious efforts in communications with many, many brokers and potential buyers, all of whom give him the same answer. And that because of what's going on that land, there's no way they're going to do anything. Certainly not single family home, and even townhome. We would be here before you if we were trying to build a townhouse. I believe. I don't think that a townhouse is allowed, and certainly not a row of townhouses. Now, some have approached him, indicating, well, between this property and your property, maybe we could build a nice condo complex. That's the kind of thing that I think that you're talking about here. But that, again, is something that would require us to go to this very same statute of the bylaw. So that is the evidence that we have, which is the testimony of the homeowner concerning his many, many efforts. And quite frankly, they have been disheartening efforts as he sort of came to the conclusion, there's really nothing that there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do here, and I'm not going to be able to take care of my family. That's where he is in this situation.
But as I understand it, he divided that property. He created the situation. if he were to sell the entire lot versus just a portion of the lot.
I got that. No, listen, some of those who have been interested have not just been interested in the front lot. He's heard many talk about, yeah, let's do both. And anytime he's dealt with someone who wanted to buy both, and keep in mind, he doesn't want to sell both. He likes Hopkinton. He loves his house. He has run a business there for the last 36 years. His goal is to stay there. But nonetheless, he's heard the offers, and what are they going to do with his property, and what are they going to do with the front property if they bought them both? Exactly the same thing. Commercial, or multi-unit kinds of things, all of which would require them to come here to seek a variance from you so that they would have those use, or go to town meeting and get a zoning change of some kind. But it would have been exactly the same situation. Now, when he separated those lots, he did not do it for purposes of ultimately coming before this board on a request for a variance. He had no concept of doing that. He just needed money so that he could live his life, pay his bills, feed his family. That's what he was trying to do. However, in his back and forth with many brokers, what did he learn? He's out of luck. He split that. Almost every lot in the town of Hopkinton was subdivided. They all have that in common. This is no different. He did not divide this for purposes of trying to create a problem on the property. He didn't. He initially did it so that he could sell a house lot to someone who might be interested in buying it, and that never came to fruition. And because I don't think he fully comprehended exactly what was going on with the property. So he did not create a situation here. He did what he had the legal right to do, which was to legally separate the lots and to try to live his life. So I don't see it that way.
Okay, so I got one more point after that, if I may. So the other aspect is the detriment to the neighborhood, right? So I take it we've got 100 people here, but you kind of skidded over that in your presentation, right? Because to the extent that a country store or gas station would be a benefit to the people that live around there or travel by there is one thing, but with any development, there's a detriment to the neighborhood potentially. So what evidence do you have that there's no detriment to the neighborhood?
Well, the standard is not a detriment, but a substantial detriment. And the evidence that we put on began with the words of Mr. Meehan. And what he said to you was that he had a project that, and he's described it very, very well, along with the help of Sean, that was intended to provide a benefit. The benefit is an old-time country store.
I get that.
So those are the benefits.
Yeah, I understand that, but what about the detriment? So there's a benefit certainly to having a gas station on that side of town versus not. But what about the detriment? There's an economic detriment if people own property that is in or around that proposed site, that proposed gas station, okay? They bought their properties with the understanding that it was zoned agricultural and that certain things couldn't be there. So when you have a gas station that's put in,
Okay.
when you have a gas station or any commercial thing that has to be considered, what is the economic detriment
Okay, well,
to those properties? And that decrease in property value is a constitutionally protected right. We can't just overlook it.
the standard that you just laid out,
So what's gonna happen is, just so it doesn't continue on this back and forth, in order for us to find for a variance, they have to meet all these standards. So my suggestion is, we allow the presentation, and then we hear the public comment, and then if they have met the standard, which are all these things that Sean is bringing up. Right now, they're going to finish their presentation, and then we're going to open it up to public comment. We'll ask questions, and then the public will ask questions, and we'll go from there. And at some point, this board will decide if you've met the standard to allow a variance. And all those things that Sean was bringing up will be, each one of those is a criteria that has to be hit. There is an order in how we do this meeting. So let's continue with the presentation. If you're done with the presentation, let's continue with the questions, understanding that those are part of the findings that we're going to judge this thing on. So he's brought up some direct points on what's allowable for a variance.
If it's all right with the board, I would just, that comment is out there, and I would just like to spend 30 seconds and respond to that. And at that point, I'm going to say to you that our presentation is over, and we'd like to open it up to comment. But the standard that you just laid out, it can't be the standard under your bylaw, because if it was, then anyone who ever sought a variance for a use would be creating a detrimental use sufficiently high to prevent the allowance of a variance. I mean, that's not the reason that what you're saying I don't think is correct is this. It's because of the variance portion of the bylaw is something that the town of Hopkinton on any day can strike or add, and they chose to add it in 1978. That was the year that it appeared here, and it was so that petitioners like my client could come in and seek relief that was not an allowed use under the bylaw. So I don't see that as a detriment at all.
If I may, people that are in the hallway, there are more seats and there's more chairs. So if you don't want to stand in the hallway, feel free to come in. We are a friendly board. Yeah. Sit right next to Bubba.
All right, let's open it up for board.
Okay, do you have anything? Yep.
Well, Mr. Reardon, just want to understand the topography of the lot. I understand about the wetland, but can you just describe the grading? Does it go downhill from School Street to toward the wetland? I'm sorry. Does the grading, the topography of this lot, does it go downhill from School Street in the direction of the wetland?
It does. So if you can look at the picture behind you, the built area, relatively flat. Everything else, sort of in the sort of the half that's closest to the built area, slopes down to the wetland. The whole left edge of the site is the wetland itself. So there's about 4 feet of grade change in that area between the wetland and the occupied portion of the site.
Okay,
right
and 4 feet over what distance?
About 20 feet, 30 feet maybe.
So what would you call that, a 20%?
Approximately, yes. Yep.
Right.
The key part of that is within 50 feet, we have strict limitations on what we can do for regrading in that area based on the Conservation Commission requirements in town.
All right, thank you.
At any point of any conversations with the Conservation Commission about a potential variance for the relief from the setback?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. if you at any time had conversations with the Conservation Commission about a potential variance for that setback, that wetland setback?
No, we haven't, but the regulations are well-written and very descriptive.
I'm familiar with the regulations, I'm just asking if you had asked for a variance or tested the waters for a variance at any point.
No, what we did do was we met with the building inspector, the Conservation Commission, the person in charge of conservation, the town planner. Like, we had several meetings at town hall when we were starting this to present and see what they thought of the plan, or if they thought that we should be going in a different direction. But we didn't think it was I didn't realize we could ask something at that point. I thought that we started here, like after the town kind of gave us any direction that they thought if something was bad or whatever.
Sure, I understand you didn't have a public hearing with the Conservation Commission, but I didn't know if at some point that variance might have come up.
No, we have had no formal conversations with the Conservation Commission related to this proposal.
You said you had a meeting with Land Use and Planning?
We did.
And through the chair, was there any discussion of the Hopkinton master plan and consistency with the zoning of the master plan? Do you recall?
Not aware of that.
Maybe allusion to that, but I don't remember any specific sort of in-depth discussion about that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's another question, short question. I was gonna ask, would it, as far as you're concerned, you need to have you need to have a gas station, filling station to make this work?
I believe so. I don't know how it works without it. What we did try to do, though, was we purposely put it behind. We put it behind the building so that it wouldn't be like a regular gas station. You wouldn't see it. You're not gonna see it as much from the street. What do you wanna say, Sean?
That seems to be the main objection from what I can see, but just wanted to.
It is without question one of what we perceive to be one of the significant net traffic benefits. Right now, it is absolutely clear that there are issues with the traffic on the east side of 495, without question. And that is almost exclusively created by the lack of filling station services on the west side. So there.
Please, sir. It's not an open meeting at this point.
I mean, I drive this corridor frequently. I have coworkers that live in Hopkinton. This is not a subtle thing, right? For Mass DOT or for anybody to put barriers on the roadway, that signifies a significant issue. I can't point to any other cause for that than the fact that people are trying to access the services on the east side of 495 that don't exist on the west side of 495.
Right, so make it completely clear, if you wouldn't go forward with this project if you couldn't have a gas
It's
station?
too much of an investment.
Just, can you hear me? Yes. Is it on?
Oh, no, it's on.
All right, can you hear me? I live on West Main Street, so I will, I kind of understand some of the objections because I have to go out in that traffic every day too. Sometimes I wait 5 minutes in my driveway because cars going 3 miles an hour won't let you in to get out. So, and yes, I don't like the fact that I have to turn around if I have to go get gas. But I don't think that that's the reason for the traffic issue is because they're going to get gas and making the turnaround. I just think the traffic on that road 2 times a day for I don't know how else to describe it, and I'm on that causeway, so right there, and I feel it. I I love the way it looks. I love your store in Mendon. I think it is a cool little. I'm a little hardware guy, and I loved the first time I went in there. I thought it was a cool little place. So if you guys haven't been there, and it doesn't matter, you should see it because it is a nice place and it's a unique place. That, but that has nothing to do with, to me, what we're looking at. What we're looking at is, again, does it meet the standards of a variance? Whether I think that would for everyone to understand, we're going to vote on not about a gas station or anything. We're going to vote on whether a variance is allowed under the standard. And then put anything there. So that's what's important. So, this, I think he's in a man of integrity. He's going to do what he says based on all his history of what he's built. But let's not lose sight of it. So if once it's important, but we're going to decide on the variance, not the gas station, okay? Whether the standards are met to allow a variance. So I hope you understand what our position is. It's not pro gas station or pro hobby shop or bee farm. It's doesn't meet the standard, and that's what we have to do. So just let you know, you got two people in the neighborhood. I'm down the street, but so I do feel the traffic. So it's not we're unsympathetic.
And I didn't mean to give the impression that this would solve traffic problems by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm trying to...
Trust me, if you could solve traffic problems, we would love it. But I agree, I don't think it's going to solve any traffic
Right.
problems.
And one of the other things I want to bring up is, how many people here get coffee at Red Barn? And so it's not that there's not commercial there right now. I buy all my stuff at Angels. And my wife almost got killed by somebody pulling out of Red Barn. They T-boned her car because they were just drinking. And so we're not looking at what it is, but just if they meet the standard. And then a lot of these other questions that people might have are Planning Board, Board of Health, DOT, EPA, and all the other stuff. So, when you're coming up and when it's public comment and everybody gets their 2 minutes, just remember what our criteria is. And that some of the things that you're going to try and bend us on, it doesn't come into our jurisdiction or our thoughts of how to do it. Okay.
Anybody else on the board?
Anybody else want to open it up?
I do have one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you gotta be like that.
As for the town planner, does this lie in the water protection overlay district, this property?
So, sorry. There we go. So it looks like it's outside of the district. It's right here.
Thank you.
standard?
Want to put a microphone up there? Okay, so all right, so the way we'll do it is, one at a time, people coming up, we're going to allow 2 minutes. Gonna be strict, because there's a lot of people here. We'll put there'll be a seat there with a microphone so everybody can hear. But, everybody gets 2 minutes. Absolutely, you can be first. And then just please state your name and your address. So,
I'm Attorney Jeff Avini. I
oh,
represent...
no, wait till you get the microphone.
You talk loud enough. Attorney Jeff Avini, I represent, I've lost them all now. I've got the five, here we go. I've got the 5 folks that live on DeCarlo, 2 of which are direct abutters. Just as a point of order, Mr. Chairman, I kept track of a little bit of time. The applicant went about 38 minutes. The board asked about, I'm just asking you, can I have more than 2 minutes? I mean, I'm going to try to keep it brief, but
I'm sorry, you don't have a choice.
So,
But see, but the applicant can take an hour and a half if they want to. You know, because
I get it, but
that's their right.
but to be
And then
fair,
we could take 2 days if we have to.
well, I don't want to do that, but to be fair, I mean, I think, you know, especially my folks, 2 of which are direct abutters, should have maybe more than 2 minutes.
Well, they could come up and also speak.
That's why I get paid. Just as a point of order.
Which,
Again, not to be redundant on a couple of things, but I think, sorry, can everybody hear me?
this is
Oh,
that's
for
a
the TV?
microphone. What? Oh, yeah, yes, it's for the.
I'll talk into the mic best I can.
Yeah, no, well, you have to, because for the
So-
minutes of the meeting, and it's on
Why don't we
TV.
find out
Alright.
how many people?
I don't like sitting down, but I'll sit
Them
down.
each.
Okay, so
Two,
how many
and-
people are you representing?
I have 5.
Okay, and
So-
yeah, no, you have to, we
All right,
have to.
so I'll tell you what, give me my 2 minutes. I'll object for the record, but give me my 2 minutes,
Sure.
and then whatever. Just say to you is, if you look at the timing of what's happened here in relation to the creation of this lot, you know, there's an old childhood saying, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? So if you look at how they set up this lot, it started as a 5.5 acre parcel, right? 2023, they file an A&R plan, okay? And basically, when they create this A&R plan, they condense everything into this frontal lot. And to be quite honest, it's pretty transparent. The lot was created for this purpose. And I'll tell you why. If you look at your zoning, in the existing master parcel, it was 5.5 acres, right? Your zoning talks about 200 feet of frontage. There's 200 feet of frontage on School Street. So an A&R lot could have been created for a house on School Street off the intersection, and it would have been plenty of room. It's pretty transparent, folks. There's no question in my mind, no question in my client's mind, this lot was created for this purpose, which is a self-created hardship, which kind of springboards off what Mr. Masterson said. Right? Their application is devoid of any discussion about hardship. And I have empathy and sympathy for the lot owners. I kind of see where they're coming from, but that simply is not the standard. And they have not met the standard. The soil and topography, if you look at the area, and I brought Mass Mapper, I don't know if you can show it on here, but as a matter of fact, the Fitzpatricks are as impacted by the wetlands. Matter of fact, they're more impacted by the wetlands than the lot in question. So if you're looking at the topography and the soils, well, it has to be unique to this property. It's not. The wetland ribbon runs up between Fitzpatrick's property, this newly created lot, and the remaining lot. So that's the second part. They haven't even come close to hit the uniqueness. And then you have to ask yourself a question. How can they claim a lot is unique when they just created it? They just created this. In all due respect, I listened to the applicant, and one thing he said that kind of bothered me, he just said a couple minutes ago, he was asked if he had the option about the country store without the gas, what would he do? And I know, Mr. Riley, you don't want to hear about the gas, but he said, I wouldn't build it. We heard 15 minutes about a beautiful country store, and I'm going to do all these wonderful things. I can't have the gas. I don't want to build it. That speaks volumes to what is going on here. And, you know, again, I could sit up here, I've got an outline, I'll gladly share it with the board, I'll share it with my brother. My brother and I actually had a conversation today. This is not the right project for this site. It's just not. And there's a couple of cases on point, I'm not gonna recite them verbatim, but when you talk about, you know, what's best for the community, this is not it. And what they've done is, they've manipulated. All right,
Here's
how
the
about-
thing, I really want to be fair, because
All
I want everybody to, if I give you, which is right, for your 2 minutes, you're supposed to, and we,
All right.
it's our fault, we're supposed to identify ourselves, and you're supposed to be from the town of Hockington. So you can represent other people, but if you're representing, then you're speaking for that person.
Sure, I'll tell you what, because they,
Who are you
all my,
and I'm okay with you speaking. And no, let me go. I'm not trying to discourage it. What I'm saying is, if you're going to speak for someone, if they're going to give you your 2 minutes as a town of Hopkinton, I'm fine with that. I think everybody else is. But what we don't want is then the people you're representing also coming up and doing it, because we're going to try and get through this thing for 2 minutes. I want to be fair to everybody. So if you got 5 people there, or 10 people there, or 40 people there,
I totally
I'll give you
understand.
your 2 minutes.
So, two things, if I could. We've got a little rendering that I want to show as far as how this project's going to overlay. I then will go, because I think for the most part, the 2 prongs of the 3-prong test have been covered. You know, the last prong,
So let me, before you do that.
Sure.
Just so you can, maybe I'm miscommunicating. Who you representing from town of Hopkinton, and they have their 2 minutes. And if it's 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, I don't care. But you gotta, because they're supposed to identify themselves as John Doe, 201 West Main Street. I'm Mike Riley, 201 West Main Street. And that's how we're gonna acknowledge you
Sure,
and
we-
give that person 2 minutes.
Fair
So before you continue, who is the people that he's
I have
representing?
James Fitzpatrick, Allison Fitzpatrick, they're 4 DiCarlo.
Okay, come on
Eric-
up. They have to be here. Come on up.
They're all here, everyone's here.
But they want to speak themselves. Okay, but again, then that's not the rules set out by the meeting.
Sure. You want the next ones?
So who's going to speak? Everybody's pointing different ways.
James Fitzpatrick, Allison Fitzpatrick, Eric Green.
So you want to give your 2 minutes to him?
I'll tell you this, I'm going to wrap it up with this, right? The last prong, I'll wrap it up with this. If you look at the abutters list attached to the application, all residential. The only one that's not is that little corner store. You've got a residential neighborhood. So when you talk about whether or not it's derogatory to the community, right? The case law will tell us that in this particular situation, when you have all residences, this project is derogatory.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So I'll let my folks, because
I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, but
look, I get it, but I don't get it.
it's all right.
All right, that's fine.
It's still, we have about 100 and something people.
We set the
Still want
standard
2
out that
minutes.
we had a 10-minute,
Well,
2-minute
and
time
I'll
limit.
just go on the record and say, I filed a letter of representation. The applicant was given about a half an hour. I have 5 people. I know, Mr. Chairman, I know,
The applicant.
I get it.
If I gave the applicant 2 minutes, how, you know, if
Well,
I,
all I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, is there ought to be some balance.
But,
That's
well,
all.
And
no,
I'm sure we'll have more than that when everybody speaks.
Sure.
do you think that's not gonna be balanced? Do you think that it's,
I didn't, why don't I,
you know? No, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. You did not hire him.
Can't give him my 2 minutes?
No, that's not how it works. No, he's not representing you, unless if you're on his list, come on, be fair, people.
all right, I'll tell you what, all these people, we've got this pretty well Mr. Chairman, we got this pretty well choreographed. All these
Okay,
people
great.
Talk about separate issues, so I'm gonna,
We're already up to, you're.
I'm gonna be quiet.
You're up to almost 7 minutes at this point. Okay.
Good evening, board members.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Fitzpatrick, my wife Allison Fitzpatrick. We live at 4 DeCarlo Road. We are the closest abutters to said property. We've lived in Hopkinton for 18 years at this residence, and to what Mr. Masterson said, I agree with you 100%. We bought the house because of the rural area, because of the sense of community the sense of everything about Hopkinton, the school system. We invested our future in the property. We have many concerns. Namely, I'll be brief, they are the way that this whole setup is been arranged, the safety concerns, and for the sake of time, we'll talk about environmental uniquely. We've done our research. Gas stations emit vapors, and they emit benzene, which is a carcinogen. It creates health concerns such as kidney disease, leukemia, neurological issues, all the stuff that we've researched. We've also researched that a gas station should not be, has to have a minimum of 300 feet away from residences where people live. A lot of our abutters are within that 300-foot barrier. That's harmful. That's dangerous to all of us. I'm sure that many of you would agree with that. We are also very, very concerned with the wetlands. When we moved there, we had our privacy. We want the wetlands protected. The gas pumps, underneath those gas pumps are gas tanks that are approximately 80 foot long, 12 feet deep. Water is going to be displaced. That could be into the wetlands. Soil is going to be manipulated by 4 feet to be straightened out. That could be water into the wetlands. That's going to disturb our backyard. That's going to disturb probably flooding in our basement. We are not opposed to a gas station or a country store. We are opposed to a gas station. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase it. I'm a little nervous. I don't do this every day.
No, that's fine.
We are opposed to a.
We don't do this every day.
You sound like you do.
I try.
No. Lastly, I will say we're not opposed to anything going in there. We want something tasteful that meets the rural character of our neighborhood, why we bought the home. Something tasteful, not a gas station. Frankly, the gas station serves people west of us. The tax dollars and people that live in Hopkinton need to be represented by the board. This does not help our neighborhood in the least. That's why we are so passionate about it. And we need you to side with the people that live in the neighborhood. No gas station. I'm sorry, Mr. Meehan. Sorry.
None of that helps. I know, it's great.
All set?
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Joe Driscoll, 5 DeCarlo Road. I want to talk for 2 minutes about traffic. So as some of you know, there are thousands of cars coming from Upton to 495 every morning. The traffic backs up at the light, the School Street light, a mile and a half back into Upton. I find it very hard to believe that people are going to want to sit in that traffic for a long time, go to this gas station, and then try to get back onto West Main Street. It is very difficult to do that because you have to get back on School Street, take a left onto West Main. That traffic light is red for an extended period of time, and when it turns green, it lets like 3 cars out. So you're gonna have a queue of cars and school buses lining up at that School Street light. In addition, when you make that left from School Street onto West Main, there are people coming from the School Street Milford side who are illegally going right on red at the same time that you were turning left there. So it's now become a dangerous left-hand turn. So it's a horrible spot for a gas station. And of course, in the afternoon, there's thousands of cars coming from 495 towards Upton, and you're going to have just multiplied problems with a gas station there. In terms of a hardship of not having a gas station, going towards 495, to go to Alltown and turn back to 495 would add about 15 seconds to your day. There's zero hardship there. I've done it many times myself. It is not difficult to do, and people will get so frustrated going, trying to get back onto West Main Street from this gas station that they're just going to stop doing it. So whatever benefit they think they're getting, they're not. Thank you.
One thing I want everybody to know, the 3 of us live in that neighborhood. As you know, I make that turn several times every single day. I work out of my house, I have another shop downtown, so I'm going back and forth all the time. So for some of you people to think that 3 of the 5 members don't understand, we do. We do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Board of Appeals,
Name and address.
my name is Eric Green, and I live at 1 DeCarlo Road, which is about 350 feet from the proposed gas station. Living that close to this gas station means my family and I will be subject to health, safety, and environmental concerns, and our property value will decrease by 2 to 3%, which ironically means the town will receive fewer property tax dollars from us. That said, I know you serve for the good of the town, and you don't want to hear "not in my backyard" concerns, even though this use variance could set a very scary precedent for the rest of the town. So I'll refer to the survey conducted by Hop News on October 1st. The survey asked if residents were in favor or if they opposed the gas station. As of this morning, the results show by a very wide margin of 67% to 28% that the town does not want this gas station. That's 2/3 of the 378 people who responded do not want a gas station in this location. Those staggering results do not mean we are anti-business, just not a business that is detrimental to our health, safety, and environment. Further, it has been widely reported that a small coalition has collected roughly 100 signatures in opposition to this gas station. I'm here to tell you that that number is completely false and inaccurate. Mr. Chairman, I, along with my neighbors and other concerned citizens, have talked to hundreds and hundreds of Hopkinton residents, some nearby and some on the other side of town. Mr. Chairman, I would like the signatures and addresses we collected to be entered into the public record. Board members, please consider the voice of the public in your decision, not just the direct abutters, and please accept not 100, but 912 signatures in strong opposition to this gas station that will unnecessarily subject my neighbors and my family to health, safety, and environmental concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I'll ask that
I'd
when
like to know the answer to that, too.
Well, you can ask questions,
Okay.
and it won't count against your time while they're answering.
What are the proposed hours?
All right, so no, we're not going to have it. Everything has to go through the chair. Everything has to go through the chair. So the question is, through the chair, you want to ask a question about what the hours are. Have you determined that yet? No, that would have to be worked out. So the answer to your question is they haven't determined the hours yet. Okay? So you can ask a question through the chair, and they can answer through the chair. There's not an interaction between folks, okay? It just keeps it civil, it keeps it organized.
I'm Lynn Kelly. I live at 6 DeCarlo Road. This is my husband, Mark. We've lived there for 21 years and raised our family there. Despite what the developers are telling you, it's a lovely neighborhood and very highly sought after to live there. It's not a rundown place that needs a gas station because nobody else wants to do anything there, in our eyes. There's talk about, on social media, people saying, well, I hope it's not a case of not in my backyard. It is our backyard. This is our backyard that abuts what would be a gas station, a 4,000 square foot, 2-story building with gas pumps behind it, underground gas tanks. The drawing that we've seen has not one light post on it, but you know that that gas station and area would be lit up quite bright. The noise that comes with a gas station, with deliveries, with tankers bringing gas, with people, you know, there's 30 parking spaces on that drawing. That's a lot of traffic coming in and out. And they're saying they want to keep people there and draw them in, and let's have them pick blueberries along your property line. You know, those are all things that create a hardship for us that we don't feel we should have to bear. You know, them doing this shouldn't create a hardship or a detriment to the neighborhood, and it does. That's where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Grant from, okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Annie Grant from 8 DeCarlo Road. My family and I moved to Hopkinton 7 years ago, and we're so fortunate to find what we thought was our dream house in our dream neighborhood. When we toured the house, we knew it was the right place for us because we could so clearly envision our children growing up there, running through the halls, playing in the backyard, and riding bikes in the street. And we've been lucky because for 7 years, that vision has become a reality. And now we're facing the possibility that our dream home could have a gas station in the backyard. The backyard where our kids should be able to play safely, but where they'll now play next to bright lights and loud noises from a potential gas station. The yards where our kids play tag, swim in pools, and swing on swing sets might now face a concrete jungle and hordes of commuters coming and going at any time of the day. Not to mention the obvious environmental and health concerns, which some of my neighbors have already spoken about. But one of the more immediate issues to our kids is the danger posed by traffic. I know my neighbor Joe Driscoll already discussed the traffic issues, but I'd like to focus on how that traffic impacts our kids. By 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, right when many of our kids are getting off the bus, the increased volume of cars speeding through our neighborhood is noticeable. Drive through again at 5 or 6 and you're likely to find a string of cars riding your bumper in their haste to avoid the intersection. And that's even currently as it's zoned agricultural. So I can only imagine that it would be worse if that were to change. I too grew up on a street similar to DeCarlo, where cars would drive through to avoid traffic from a nearby office park. And it took a child being killed before people woke up and did something about it. Is that what it's going to take for us? With the addition of this gas station, are we going to be able to feel safe letting our kids play hide and seek in the backyards or in the woods behind our houses? Or are we going to have to be on high alert to the stranger danger that's now present in some of our very own backyards? With the added traffic, will we be able to let them ride bikes or walk to a friend's house on their own? Would you? I'm at 2 minutes. Okay. Well, can I just...
You're well over, but we just, okay, so.
All right. Well, I just wanted to end by saying, I know Mr. Mian and his team said that there is no detriment to the public good, but I think it's obvious that it would be a detriment to the kids.
Hi, and thank you for letting us speak. I did not come as prepared as everyone else, and unfortunately have to read from my phone, which I hate doing as a teacher.
Can you introduce yourself?
I am Kathy Curry from 15 DeCarlo Road, and this is my husband, Tom Weisinger. Interesting, and this is just a side note, but I'm starting with this. Our neighborhood has respectful signs, and our voices wanted to be heard. But yesterday, somebody came by, and we didn't know who, took signs from various lawns, including ours. And there was somebody seen walking away from the property, but our signs were removed, and I don't think that that should be. Something that was mentioned, I do want to, Sean, I couldn't see back there because I'm old. All right, words are not evidence, paper is evidence. There are opinions and there is evidence. Maybe those selling did not do their due diligence. If so, where is the proof? Who specifically said what was said? Who were the brokers? Why aren't they here? And if you did, and I think if you did do your due diligence, you would be speaking differently. Prove it. Words, someone's testimony, that's not proof. Proof is on paper. Right? So why don't people want this land? Location, location, location. What happens if it fails? And I believe it will. Then what? those, and who are the customers? Not people from Hopkinton, they would be Upton. What will become if it doesn't succeed? Who controls that? Amato Farm closed and was not replaced. When I asked why, they said the business was not there. In addition, if you feel you need to conceal the gas pumps, then you already know why people oppose it. We all have stories, we all have needs, but one couple's hardship has nothing to do with whether Hopkinton needs another filling station. The filling station will not increase the value of those homes in the neighborhood. How is this place going to replace Calella's or Hopkinton Drug? No one from town will drive to shop at this store. It is too far from town, and there are other viable choices like Price Chopper, who sells cards and flowers, and there is CVS to replace Hopkinton Drug. People also shop on Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and the Board. I'm Jeff Rowland, 14 Old Farm Road, Chair of the Sustainable Green Committee, and speaking on behalf of the committee. I understand your guidance on the variance. I'm going to speak about the gas anyways. And for the record, I drove here in an EV.
So did I. Well, hybrid.
The Sustainable Green Committee cautions that the addition of this gas filling station would be a detriment to the public good. There are obvious environmental and health concerns to this proposed project, such as the loss of agricultural land, and that soils around gas stations almost always become contaminated. With the high water table and the position of this parcel at the top of the hill between multiple watersheds and neighborhoods, it is almost certain that any potential contamination will spread far beyond the site. Further, there is the goal of net zero carbon emissions. Last year, the town adopted a goal of net zero by 2045. Hopkinton cannot reach net zero if we continue to invest in fossil fuel infrastructure. Adding a gas filling station would be at odds with the town's stated climate goals. Gas usage is also declining in town. In the past year, 36% of new vehicle registrations in Hopkinton were EVs, plug-in hybrids, and hybrids, with the majority of those being EVs. All of these vehicles will use little to no gas, and these numbers have been rising every year, and will continue to do so, as Massachusetts has banned the sale of vehicles with internal combustion engines by 2035, just 10 years from now. Homeowners also continue to switch from gas to electric lawn equipment, continuing the decline in gas usage. The committee advises that the risks of this fossil fuel filling station do not outweigh the rewards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Driscoll, 5 DeCarlo Road. I've lived at this address for 25 years. The application for zoning use variance attempts to persuade you to consider that a gas station at 290 West Main Street is a good idea. It characterizes this location as in need of revitalization and proposes that a quaint gas station would harmonize with the character of the surrounding area. The applicant seems to think that the neighborhood would welcome such a project to help sustain its rural tradition. We do not agree. The fact is that the installation of the traffic light at the corner of School and West Main has produced unintended traffic problems that have had a regional effect. West Elm Street, School Street, and DeCarlo Road have become major cut-throughs for the afternoon traffic traveling westbound. Previously, children were able to ride bikes, scooters, and even play tennis on DeCarlo Road after school. Now, commuters speed through, some tailgating in their effort to get ahead of the light. This change has become a disruption to the harmony of our neighborhood and has caused significant safety concerns. An attraction at that intersection will worsen traffic, leaving us to deal with the unwanted consequences. Furthermore, the former Evergreen Haven Garden Center often had their mulch deliveries rerouted through DeCarlo Road during the wee hours of the morning, so trucks could better negotiate the turn into 290 West Main. The result was truck noise loud enough to wake family members. How would this be any different for tanker trucks refilling pumps? DeCarlo Road is a very desirable place to live and raise a family, and should not bear the burden of absorbing Hopkinton's commercial sprawl. The applicant is presenting his project with nostalgic imagery and presumes benefits to the neighborhood that don't exist. Maintaining the agricultural district will continue to keep alive its rural tradition and keep out any hardships associated with the commercialization at 290 West Main.
My name is Jerry Kazanj, and I reside at 29 Elizabeth Road, which is served by the intersection of West Main and School Streets. I'm an attorney well-versed in the variance bylaw, having appeared before the board for my own home. With all due respect to the O'Connors and to Mr. Meehan, with whom I share an affinity for Christmas lights, my remarks are not anti-business or NIMBY, but rather pro-rule of law, because the variance bylaw prohibits the requested relief. First, the site has been and could again be used for residents, and the petition's arguments against such use are disingenuous. One, no one would build a home or raise a family there. This is pure speculation. The site has not been on the MLS, and the market has not spoken. As a real estate broker, I'm confident 2 modest residences at that corner would sell in a heartbeat. Recent history dictates there is nothing about the site, not even the red herring water tower looming over the intersection since 1955, that would deter it, because families have resided at all 4 corners. At the southwest, right next to the water tower, the Feathers family built 66 School Street in 2000, which last sold in 2005 after just 19 days on the market to the Kaufmans, who raised a family there. At the northeast, the Hayneses have raised a family at 280 West Main Street since 2001. At the southeast, the eponymous Angel and Paul Doherty raised Jeff and Stephen at 65 School Street. The northwest relates to the petition's next disingenuous assertion. 2, residential uses precluded on portions of the site removed from the intersection. This is just plain false. The O'Connor family home stood removed from the northwest corner of the intersection at the northeast of the site from 1950 until Mr. O'Connor demolished it in 2012. Second, the site has been and could again be used for agricultural use, and the petition's arguments against such use are meritless. 1, too small. The site was used for agriculture until Evergreen Haven recently ceased operations, and the variance bylaw explicitly excludes size. 2, not marketable. This too is pure speculation because, again, the site has not been on the MLS and the market has not spoken. 3, tax burden. The site is eligible for agricultural real property tax relief under Chapter 61A. In conclusion, there is no hardship for which relief may be granted, and the zoning bylaw is clear. Quote, failure to establish any of the standards shall constitute grounds for this board to deny a petition for a variance. But even if there were a hardship, this board is prohibited from granting this redistricting end around because, as you've heard from my neighbors, it would, 1, come at the substantial detriment to the public good, 2, nullify or substantially derogate from the intent or purpose of the zoning bylaw, and 3, be injurious, noxious, offensive, or detrimental to the neighborhood.
Given you extra time.
Thank you.
Jerry, I think you could do one of those commercials afterwards.
I cannot speak that fast.
I know.
Hello, good evening, members of the board. My name is Andreas Graham. I live at 10 Stonegate Road off School Street. I pass through the corner of West Main and School Street every day. You've already heard concerns about traffic, environmental impact, and more. I want to focus on the petitioner's claim that their variance is justified by the existing retail facility on the site, suggesting that the proposal is merely an enhancement. And this is a misrepresentation of the site's facts. The current retail facility is a small farm stand consisting of a 120 square foot office. The other structures around that office are in enclosed wooden trestles. The remaining buildings of the site are greenhouses used for agricultural and consistent with the land's original designation. In front of the small retail structure are 6 parking spaces. The other areas of the property were designated for truck parking and for picking up logs and mulch and did not serve the retail space. The petitioner argues that the New Country store, which will be 4,000 square feet, does not increase the commercial square footage, even though it is 33 times bigger than the current retail footprint. Their reasoning is based on the misleading inclusion of the greenhouses, which parking spaces will increase from 6 to 35. This is a 5-fold increase. Without an existing variance, it is not appropriate to include the agricultural buildings in future commercial expansion plans. This point fundamentally undermines the petitions and should be a key consideration in your consideration. Furthermore, one that does not exist in the current site is a gas station. It's not there. So everything else is there, but no gas station. The petitioner is keen to highlight the existing structure but ignores the change of use. The pursuing of the variance is a blatant attempt to circumvent the town's zoning bylaws, and I encourage the board to vote against this variance.
Thank you.
My grandparents, my disabled cousin, and great grandmother. So I was gonna talk about I don't live in Hopkinton, but I'm gonna use my grandparents' house for example.
Okay, go ahead. And what's your name?
Grayson Woody. So if the gas station was there and the gas polluted the wells, my grandparents and everybody else who has a well would have polluted water and not be able to take showers or clean water to use for any type of foods that need water.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Doug Hunt, 8 on Matthew Road, not too far from this location. So a little bit of a different twist here. I am very sympathetic and have a tremendous amount of empathy for Kathy and what she's going through. I've been a resident for 29 years and have been at her Evergreen location for many, many years, and I did not realize you had stage 4 cancer. And I just wanted to express empathy from the town of Hopkinton for what a great citizen of Hopkinton you've been. God bless you. And I do think that she does deserve consideration. I think it's fair to give her consideration. I do think a country store, a true country store, the way it's been laid out, and frankly, the plan looks impressive. And if we're putting a true country store in the vein of Amato Farms, as you mentioned, would be something that the town should be seriously considering. I'm a huge fan of the Amato Farm stand, of what was there before. I do appreciate the current technology for fuel tanks that's out there. It is highly different from historical with what's been out there in the past. But I do want to make sure we put some real clarity around the number of pumps, because I have been visited by people to my home that have said there's 12 plus pumps going in, and I don't know why that's being said, but if you're really putting in a country store and you're only putting in 4 pumps, that should be really held to by the future boards if this takes any kind of serious consideration. And I really want to make sure that that happens. I've seen what has been put in Mendon in the past. It is an impressive store, and I think it would be a positive for the overall community. But nobody wants a large gas station in that location, that's for sure. But if you were to build the plan as you've laid it out, I think it would be an interesting proposition. It deserves all of the planning committee's attention and all committees' attentions around the environmental and safety guidelines. That's, I think, going to be critical.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that it is important that it goes through the proper process with all those considerations for all the future boards.
Thank you.
My name is Michelle Murdoch. I live at 53 School Street. I've lived there for 30 years. And one of the things that stands out for me is that School Street is a scenic road. Scenic roads have no sidewalks. They have protected trees. Most of the homes have stone walls, all of which cannot be touched, changed, or moved. And I think that a gas station at the end of the street is just ridiculous and does not fit that scene. During the presentation, they cited that the gas tanks on the east side of 495 were similar. You've got to be kidding me. That area on the east side is not the area of School Street in West Main, not even close. They also talked about placing the gas pumps at the back of the property and they would be hidden. Well, guess what? They would not be hidden from the people that live on School Street. And every time I would drive out to West Main to leave and go somewhere, I would be staring at gas tanks. I would also be faced with, if people were entering to go to the gas station, they have to turn into school and cut in front of me. Okay, and we have a light at School Street, which we would not get out. That's why it was put in there. As I think someone else said, it takes 3 cars to get, that's all that's gonna get through. And now we would have traffic cutting in front of us to go in and get gas. So there's just no way this fits. And I can't support it, and I'm hoping that this won't go through. I'm sorry for the situation that the seller is in. But again, I think there was another valid point that the people making the proposal for the variance don't own the property. And if you really thought it was a good go, you would have bought it first. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Craig Stanley. I live at 25 Hillcrest Drive. I'm going to be on the opposite side of the aisle here. Not in my backyard. I live on Hillcrest Drive. Price Chopper Plaza is in my backyard. All of our neighborhood, we're all up in arms. You know, we're afraid our taxes, our property values were going to go down. The traffic would be horrible. And that's not the case. My house is worth more today than it was a week ago. The traffic, I have seen no difference in traffic with Price Chopper being there, which is 50 times bigger than what is being proposed here. The other thing is something is going to go there, whether it's something that Kevin Meehan builds or something that somebody else builds, maybe a air horn factory. We don't know. But I do know Kevin Meehan. I've known Kevin for over 30 years, working for the town of Milford for almost 40 years. He has given every community that he's come into, he's made it a better place to live. He's not going to come here and build shoddy stuff. Or he has contributed so much to every community. Milford, you can ask any of his abutters. They all love him. You go to Mendon, ask any of his abutters in Mendon. I'm sure all you're going to hear is great things. He's a good man, and I'd rather have Kevin build something that's, I know it's going to be good, where somebody else, God only knows what we're going to get. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith Benson, 11 Barber Road. I grew up in Hopkinton. I went to Hopkinton High School. I now lived in Hopkinton for 15 years. I want to specifically talk about the detriment side of it. We talked about the financial impact of the town. I want to raise a few points for people that think that, you know, we need more commercial business in town. I don't think this helps the town from an economic standpoint, the town as a whole or the residents around it. If you look at the specific, you know, tax revenue for the town, it's specifically around the property tax. All the other taxes, corporate tax, gas tax, sales tax, all goes to the state. The only benefit the town gets is property tax. And you can look at the 2025 budget plan for the town of $115 million. Over 80% of the $115 million budget for 2025 town of Hopkinton, it's all property tax. So what we're talking about here is property tax. And if you could look at a comparable gas station of Cumberland Farms by 495, it's assessed at $2 million. So $2 million of taxable property is what we're kind of talking about for benefits of the town of tax dollars. And if you look at the homes around this plot of land, they're all assessed around $1 million. Fitzpatrick home, you can look online, it's assessed, you can look, it's $1 million assessed. It's fair to say that these other homes close to it are assessed around $1 million. So you have $2 million of taxable property for this would-be gas station, $1 million homes around it. Let's say each of these homes, the 5 closest homes drop by 20% in property value, because clearly all these people wouldn't want to buy a house that has a gas station right behind them. Property values drop. Let's say 20%, 5 homes, $1 million. That's a net loss of $1 million with the 5 closest homes. Then let's say the other 20 homes in our neighborhood drop by 10% in property value. So you have 20 homes assessed at around $1 million, lose 10%, that's negative $2 million. The 5 closest homes drop by 20%, that's $1 million loss. So negative 3 million with plus 2, it's a negative loss in the town for tax dollars, of tax rate of negative $1 million. Now the people are just right around it are losing a significant portion of their property value of, so you talk about detriment, it's a detriment to the whole town and the people around it. And I would say, you know, this we should look for a win-win business. This looks like a lose for the town, lose for the people around it.
Thank you.
I'd like to read on behalf of someone else. I'd like to read on behalf of someone else. Well, I'd like to have people that entered, that sent you an email, I'd like to have their comments read aloud to the community. They have the,
No.
They're entered into the record.
Public record.
I'd like to have it read aloud.
You can read, you can
All right,
bring
I'll ask somebody
yourself.
else to read the comments for me.
My name is Andrew Amato. I live at 75 School Street. Like it's been said, my family's lived in the town for a long time. I grew up here, I went to high school, went away, came back to raise my family. I've got to say, when you get a millennial out at a meeting like this, you know the idea is terrible. I'm sympathetic to the cause. You mentioned the farm. My family had to sell the farm under similar circumstances. And I think the key thing that was mentioned was, where's the evidence for the grievance here that this is actually needed? It's been such a short amount of time. There was a house there. People would live there, absolutely. You can't say that there's been enough offers to actually go out and take this kind of project on. I really, really think that it's comparable to the situation my family was in, where it took 10 years before anything actually happened with the old Amato farm, because there was process. People went through, there were board meetings like this, and proposals came and proposals went. And that's evidence, right? Like that's, hey, we tried to do this, we tried to do that, nothing worked. Eventually it changed hands enough times and something was built. That's the burden of proof that I think we're looking for. That's just not here. It was way too fast. And there's the evidence suggests that the house could be built there. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve West. I'm at 6 Barber Road, which is just around the corner from this. I'm very pro for this site to have a 2 to 3 unit townhouse or a single unit home to fit right in with the $1 million homes, $1 million plus homes in this area. The idea that it can't sell is absolutely ridiculous. The need for the community. Across the street, we have the Red Barn, which is coffee, breakfast, lunch. Down this single road, within 5 miles, is 4 gas stations. Within 5 miles. The need for a gas station here is absolutely ridiculous. This site is at the top of a hill. Johns Hopkins University study, 2023, shows that 400 gallons on average are spilled at a gas station every year, and that 20 to 30% of fuel tanks at gas stations over their lifetime will spill. This is at the top of a hill. When you spill something here, what happens? The entire area downhill is contaminated, likely forever. We have wetlands in my backyard that are directly connected with the runoff from the water in this whole area. So just spilling of small amounts of gas that then is by rainwater is brought off there's no possible way that is not going to be contaminating this site. And then all of the wetlands, including my backyard, I own 3 acres, more than half of my property is wetlands, low-lying area. It's going to be directly contaminated where my children live. I am not going to want to be there along with other people. Property value is going to tank. Also, the traffic here, if you say detriment, if this traffic messes things up here, let's say 2.5 minutes by 1 light cycle each way, that's 5 minutes per day, 300 days out of 365. All of the residents of this area have to go by there. That's 1,500 minutes a year. That's 25 hours a year of extra time in our car because of extra traffic because of this site. You know, it's ridiculous. It's massive impact to the people here. The traffic jam goes all the way down to Price Chopper in one direction and miles down in the other direction already. If this worsens it either 5, 10, or 20%, it will be catastrophic to the people who live here and the thousands that pass by it every day.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Linda Chuss. I'm from 11 School Street, and I want to say that I've enjoyed going to Evergreen and buying things from them, and I wish them the best with whatever happens. My first question is related to many people have mentioned there's been no evidence of proving that the lot couldn't be sold. And my question is, why was that evidence not brought? One has to wonder that. If you were trying to make a case, why would you have not brought actual evidence? The second thing is, I don't understand how you can address detriment to the town without knowing what goes in there. You said, oh, it doesn't matter what goes in, but one of the things you're looking for is detriment. I don't understand how you can assess detriment without knowing what's going to go in there.
One of the reasons, just as an answer, because once you do the variance, it really can be anything. That's what's really important to understand, because it doesn't have to be this. Once you do it, once you change that you're going to allow commercial property, it doesn't have to be this. It could be, so that's why, I know, no, I understand, but that's why it's important to understand. We have to just determine whether a variance is, they qualify for variance, not they qualify for variance because of this particular project.
Okay, that's still hard for me to wrap my head around, but like some commercial things would be detrimental and some would not. So it's hard for
Certainly.
me to wrap my head around that. Oops, did I lose power? Sorry, 1 second. And that was sort of my other point. Once you grant this variance, it's granted forever. We've lost agricultural land forever, and we have no say what goes in there in the future. And I think that's important to know. And the last thing about a gas station, which I know I'm not supposed to talk about specifically, there's currently a state law that says as of 2035, no more gas-powered vehicles will be allowed to be sold in this state, new vehicles. So here we are investing in putting tanks in the ground for something that in about 10 years is effectively starting to go obsolete. And it's a big investment to put gas tanks in the ground from an environmental perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Conti, 9 DeCarlo Road. I'm about 500 feet from the site, just outside of the Fitzpatrick's. I've been on DeCarlo Road for 29 years, so I've seen the traffic at that intersection 15 years before the light went in and 15 years after the light went in. So I have that unique experience. And so, as you know, to the chair, there's no way of getting out of DeCarlo Road without, running the risk of an accident in the morning. And I'm an early riser. I leave anywhere from 5 to 7 o'clock in the morning. So nothing's going to get better by this project. It's not going to get better. There's nothing that's been presented today that says that this is going to get better, because we know that you bring a 55-foot tanker into that site, it's not even going to be able to turn out of that site because you only have one lane, a single lane. If you go down to the mobile site, you have 2 lanes. And I've talked to that tanker driver. He can't pull out onto West Main Street. He backs out and goes out the back. That's a fact. That's not anecdotal. I talked to him for 30 minutes. So that's what's going to happen here. That tanker, when it comes in, is going to back up all the traffic. And the way they got it set up right now, excuse me, my throat is really dry. He'll have to go out onto a residential street, which is School Street. That's not going to work. He'll have to cross that single lane to turn a 55-foot tanker. So what's going to happen here, and this is what's the trouble I have with the continued statements about, this might change. It's going to change because it's not going to work. And you said I could, being an engineer, I've pulled permits and use permits for my biotech clients for 14 years. I'm in the design build business. I'm a civil engineer myself, and I'd like to address Sean with a couple of questions. Will it take time? You said it wouldn't take time. I just want to ask him 2 questions. But can I ask him the 2 questions?
You can ask the chair. No,
Through the
everything
chair,
goes through the chair.
May I ask Sean two questions? I'm sorry. Thanks, John.
You've done this before, you
Yes,
understand.
yes, John. So my first question, John, is the civil engineers for the applicant stated that well, first of all, they're applying, John, to the chair. They're applying because they don't want to disturb the soil, or the soil it's detrimental to some of these uses that, they were conveying that were rejected. But they're disturbing the soil by as much as to their admission, upwards of 4 feet of fill.
What's the question?
The question is, there was a statement that only 50 feet was going to be filled. There's over 150 feet of fill that's going to go onto the site. So the question is, why are they disturbing this site by 150 feet for this use when they said previously that, there was no use that they could do without, substantial detriment? There is no detriment if they have to fill.
So your question is, why are they doing 150 when they stated 50?
Yes.
Because we have to get the question.
Yes, that's the question. The disturbance is much greater than what they stated. Can he confirm that?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but let me sort of restate what I recall saying. So the hardship bears on the fact that we have a wetland that extends the entire western edge of the site. That wetland takes up a certain portion of the site. The town has a wetland bylaw that has a 50-foot no-build zone adjacent to that, which precludes any activity within that area. That isn't otherwise to fix an existing situation. So those are all soil, wetlands are hydric soils, those are soil conditions. The grade in that 50-foot zone is topography, those are topographical conditions. All of those conditions force our development closer to the signalized intersection, which is closer to a control situation that is not, in our opinion, not conducive to a single-family home and not conducive to other uses allowed within the agricultural district.
To the chair, my question wasn't relative setback. The statement was made by the civil engineer when the question was asked, I believe by one of the board members, what was the distance of that fill? And the statement was made that it was only 50 feet. And if you look at the plan, they're filling this site.
No, if I recall, what he was talking about was the setbacks from the Concom, and then it was also brought by Mr. Moore.
I just want to clarify that the plan shows over 4 feet of fill going back 150 feet to.
Could you get to your second question?
Okay, the second, yeah. So the second question is, does the civil engineer representing the applicant know at this time when he said that all design considerations to protect the stormwater would be done, does he know where that head wall is, where the discharge is going to take place? Where is the discharge?
Yeah, and again, that's one of the questions that would be answered by the planning board, by Concom, by the EPA.
Well, I was standing on it this morning to the chair, and it's in that north corner right on West Main Street. That's the only place the water goes out right now, and they're creating impervious soil, impervious cover between the pavement and so forth. All of that, based on the grading right now, is going to go into that wetlands.
And it's not because that hasn't been determined yet. That would be determined if it goes through our board.
On this plan, I can read that grading plan. They can read this grading plan, and that's not being discussed. The people that are abutters, who are my friends.
You have a question to ask. You're about 5 minutes in. So do you want to answer the question then?
Yeah, just for clarity. So we will be required to comply with Massachusetts stormwater standards as part of our filing with Conservation Commission, as part of our compliance with other local regulations. The current site has no stormwater controls. My statement was that the project will result in a completely compliant stormwater management system where none exists today. That is guaranteed through the execution of the notice of intent process with your Conservation Commission. That is not discretionary. That will occur.
Thank you.
Tom Murdoch, 53 School Street. I've lived at that location, about 5 houses down from the 290, which is also abutting on School Street, for 30 years. And I think if you ask my current neighbors, many of whom are here, or any of the neighbors I've had over the last 30 years of our neighborhood, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that said, you know what we really need is a gas station and a convenience store plopped at the end of that street in the middle of our residential neighborhood. Instead, what would you hear? We have an ideal combination today. We are 2 miles away from 2 gas stations right next to 495. Recently, they even improved. The Mobil's even bigger, and I dispute that it's a harder traffic problem to get there. I agree with my neighbor who said you just take a left at the light, you take a left at the stop sign, you come in the back, and there's 2 entrances to the Mobil. And you exit out the front. There's plenty of pumps. I find the argument by the developer and his representatives that a positive reason for his proposal is to pull business away from those 2 gas stations existing at a proper location in a properly zoned area with existing gas tanks right next to a highway, and move that traffic, that noise, that disruption, building new tanks on the ground right in the middle of our residential neighborhood seems ridiculous. It's a crazy idea. We don't need it there. Some of the things that might be at this convenience store called a country store sound like they might be more appropriate at Target. We don't need a little Target plopped in our neighborhood. It's just 2-3 couple miles down 495. It's an ideal combination of a quiet neighborhood with easy access to what we need already. We don't need this. The benefit to the town is absolutely minimal, which is the first step. And I think we've also talked about all the detriments, including the traffic. The big thing about the traffic is, especially afternoon traffic, it backs up so far from 495, we get all the cut-throughs that were mentioned. And because that traffic light's the top of that hill, you can sit at that traffic light and you can watch the cars go through, and they get 60 seconds or more. And they will be apart by like 100 feet from each other. And anything that slows them down going in or out to go into this business will blow our traffic way out of concern.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gormley at 9 Peppercorn Road. I actually wasn't going to speak. I've had kind of a change in mindset today. So I came in all about no gas station. Commercial, okay, you know, I'm totally for commercial in building up the town of Hopkinton. But after like kind of hearing everything, I'm really against that site being used as commercial in terms of how it abuts the people that have spoken, literally their backyards. So I ask kind of the board and the people making the vote to think about your backyard. And because we have such a risk of what will go there as a commercial entity, I think the risk is way bigger than any type of reward for the town. And I think it also sets a huge precedent. Hopkinton has had a lot of residential growth. So is it setting a precedent to the whole legacy farms? Is that going to be built up as, you know, a huge commercial entity? I'm just using that as an example. But I have had a kind of a step back to say it's not about the gas station, it's about the variance and really the effects on the town. So I hope you take that into account.
Thank you.
Excuse me, one thing I'd like to address is this, and I heard it a couple times, the precedent. You know, this is, anybody can come anytime to the Board of Appeals and ask for something to be rezoned, a small property, or people can go to town meeting like what that happened with on West Main Street down by across the street from where Dynasty used to be. There were 4 houses that were rezoned because there were 4 houses. There was commercial on one side, commercial on the other side. So there's no precedent where all of a sudden, I'm sure that if this goes one way or the other, that people are going to be coming up from the middle of Elizabeth Road and saying, "Oh, I want to redo something here." You know, so we still have all the criteria to go through. So whatever happens here does not mean it's gonna. I believe it'll be waterfall.
Hi, Jacob Carvalho, 13 Elizabeth. I just want to clarify something Mr. Riley said a couple times now about how the intended use is irrelevant to the decision whether the variance should be granted. It seems in the Hopkinton statute, which refers to the Massachusetts statute, that the non-conforming use and the effects it's going to have on the neighborhood are totally relevant to that decision. So I was just hoping for an explanation.
Because it can become anything. They're asking for a gas station, but he has a right, once a variance is done, it's commercial property. It's changing it from agricultural and residential, those are the only two accepted uses now, to a commercial use. So I was just kind of get people that we're going to judge whether this hardship exists and whether a variance should be granted based on if that hardship exists. A couple of the folks have brought up interesting things about saying, well, here's why it's not a hardship. You guys have a public detriment. You know, what's the definition of a public detriment? You're kind of displaying a public detriment. So all those standards have to be met in order to allow a variance. If it was something else, and Arnold asked the question about, hey, what if there's no gas station? Well, he's not interested if it's not a gas station. If there was no gas station. So see what I mean? It doesn't really matter what it is. It's they're applying on their property in saying, because of these really 3 or 4 standards in the variance things, is it a hardship? Is it topography caused the hardship? Is it not a detriment to the public? All those standards have to be met in order for this board to say, you've met the standard, we're going to grant the variance. Oh, you're going to put that up? Okay, that's you know, in the back of your mind, it's part of it, but it's not really, because he could change his mind and say, oh, it's a commercial property, I'm going to build something else.
I think the detriment to the neighborhood prong of the standard you're referring to says that the proposed non-conforming use, not any proposed non-conforming use, it asks whether the proposed non-conforming use will be a detriment to the neighborhood and a contravention of the purpose of the zoning laws, and I think it's impossible to consider that without.
I do understand that, but I also understand that they have a right to change that. So in my mind, whether I believe in I haven't, you know, formulated my thoughts on how I'm going to conclude this when we get to a vote, but I have to understand that there's a possibility that they may not do that. I'm really going to focus on me personally. I'm not saying how anybody else on the board is. I'm going to focus on, has the hardship been met by the standard? And that's what I will eventually vote on.
Okay, well, I hope you'll read the statute closely.
Yeah, see, I have one more thing. So, you know, several years ago, a bank wanted to go into the spot where Dunkin' Donuts is now. And a similar group came out and said, we do not want a commercial bank going into that spot. And the bank pulled out. A couple years later, we have a Dunkin' Donuts that created an even bigger traffic problem and some of these other things. So you know, one of the things, you never know what's going to go in there.
I don't think it
sometimes.
gets worse than a gas station.
No, I'm just saying for that area, a bank would have been better.
Good evening. I'm Glenn Griffiths. I live at 9 Barber Road. I've been there for about 20 years, and I am going to read, so these are not my opinions, I'm going to read Robert Benson, Chair of the Planning Board's email to the board, so I think you probably already read this. And thank you. I appreciate your comments earlier about precedent, and I think this addresses some of those, so I'm sorry if it's repeating. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm writing to express my opposition to the proposed use variance at the property at 290 West Main Street. Landowners have established avenues to seek rezoning, such as presenting before the Zoning Advisory Committee and Planning Board or through citizens' petition. It appears that the current landowner subdivided their property in the latter half of 2023 to circumvent these established processes to seek use variance, which ultimately aims to increase the property's value. Granting this variance would set a dangerous precedent in Hopkinton, as it would allow for the ZBA to effectively dictate zoning requirements outside the will of the community as expressed at our annual town meeting. This application does not meet the reasonable standards for consideration by the Board of Appeals, and I believe it would be prudent to conclude this matter in a short meeting. Moreover, the potential negative impact on public good is evident from the signatures on the petition and numerous yard signs opposing the variance. I urge the board to consider the conceptual drawings submitted do not determine what would actually be built if the variance is granted, which Mr. Riley has told us about. Lastly, I want to highlight that if the Board of Appeals were to approve this variance, any property owner who experiences a reduction in property value may have grounds to personally sue the board members who voted in favor. I request this letter be read aloud at tonight's meeting. Sincerely, Robert Benson. Again, those are his opinions, and we appreciate you allowing me the time.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Zhang. I live in 14 School Street. First of all, I want to say I've been a customer to the seller, and I'm very sympathetic to the medical conditions that your family member, and same as my family member, is going through. First, I want to say I'm not anti-business, and I'm not anti-Mr. Mian, but I'm still impressed by the blueberry patches idea in your proposal, just minus the gas station. Likely, I may even visit one of your business in Mendon or the places that you mentioned has local Black Angus beef. But I want to bring to the board's attention that the decision, I believe, is given to the lot and not to Mr. Mian, right? So let's say once granted, there's no stopping for other folks to come offer to buy this land as commercial use and do things more profitable. And sometimes I try to put myself as a potential investor, perhaps a 24-hour auto car washing facility, manned by one or two folks, less employees could be going in, could be much more profitable, or 24-hour gaming arcades for the teenagers in the neighborhood. I'm just thinking about investing ideas for this lot once we give the variation for commercial use. Yeah, and then agricultural and residential, I believe, is still the most suitable for this lot, as all my neighbors that have come before me already said clearly. So I advise the board to not go through with this variation. Thank you.
Thank you. On the right before you get to the stop sign. I think what's awesome is I'm glad they've submitted a proposal that has a gas station, because they could have submitted a proposal, which you've clarified, that was the country store, or frankly just parking and blueberry bushes. You grant the variance, and then we end up with a gas station. So I think it's pretty awesome that, at least my understanding was, and I guess it's asking the question, let's say they had submitted the country store, based on what you explained earlier, could it turn into a gas station after the fact? I don't think it could have turned into a gas station, but they could have done
Because they would still need
other commercial uses.
They would still need a special permit, just like the last speaker that came out. And said
But
that-
they would have gotten through this step of the process. Okay.
If the last speaker that just said it could be a car wash or
Anything.
something else, again, planning board, Board of Health.
We get that.
Those things, and 24-hour things are not allowed in Hopkinton anymore.
Well, this is zoned agricultural. It shouldn't be allowed here. And I guess the point I was going to make is from the traffic studies that were done previously, before they put the light in, it was primarily driven because it was in the top 5% for highest crashes. That was before the light went in. I'm sure there was very elaborate traffic studies that were done. The unintended consequences, we literally live on West Elm. There's cars going probably 40, 50 miles an hour, zooming in front of our house. They're stacked 20, 30, 40 deep. You cannot walk in front of our house with, whether it's pets or anything else, 2 hours in the evening. They roll through the stoplight. You're literally taking your life in your own hands. And guess what? They aren't going to the corner there to wait through 3, 4, 5 stoplights. They're then cutting through DeCarlo. So the traffic study that I'm sure was done when they put the light in 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I forget the exact timing, didn't incorporate that. And I personally don't have a lot of faith that if you let it get past this, and it gets to the point where somebody does a traffic study and they determine that it's actually some kind of benefit or something, I don't believe it. We live it. We bought the house without fully understanding this. We're getting through it, but we alter what we do in the afternoons just to avoid, frankly, getting killed. So that was the main point. It's a significant detriment. I know this. I won't. We started walking. developers, we just don't do it because it's dangerous. It's just dangerous.
Hi, I'm Jack O'Leary. I live at 3 Barber Road with Verna Mims, my partner. Been there for 27 years. Wasn't planning on speaking. Kind of following in Elizabeth's path, I started to think about what you were saying about concentrating on the variance aspect of this. Because I have a well that's 400 feet from here, and I'm concerned, like everybody, that the runoff and all the environmental issues will end up in the well. And if it doesn't matter, because if we ever sell the house, the next people will worry about it. And it's not like we don't all know what it feels like to be worrying about water problems in the town, you know, so, and as it occurs to me, I'm the last person here and I don't really have anything big to say, so that's kind of bad. But I just feel like what's happened here is that the hardship that many of us don't perceive of selling this property residential is really just about maximizing profit at the expense of each one of us, the homeowners that are here. We each lose 1%, 2%, 3%, and they gather it all up as a piece of commercial property. And so I'd like to speak just to say that when we all moved in here, we all knew that there was zoning for residential agriculture. And we assumed that that would protect us, and that the people here, this board, would protect us from this exact thing happening. You know, that next week McDonald's wants to put in because they can maximize profits, so they buy your house or your house and say, hey, you know, it's a hardship because the owner says we could sell it for $1 million, but we can sell it to McDonald's for $2 million. It's a hardship. And so,
Bylaw against them.
well, that's what we thought about this. You know, we really, honestly, the idea that a gas station or anything else, that a commercial building, that a retail piece of property would be stuck on the end. Is that over?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up.
Jennifer Green, 1 DeCarlo Road. I want to say thank you to Jack. That was quite eloquent. And it's been a long night for everybody, but the flippancy is challenging to listen to. He's making a comment about McDonald's. We understand that that's not going to happen, okay? But we also didn't expect a gas station at the corner of our neighborhood. So it's hard to listen to the comebacks because this is not flippant to us. This is our neighborhood. This is an agriculturally zoned, residentially zoned area with a family. We care about people in this neighborhood. We're not mad at the O'Connors. We're not frustrated because they're in need. We're frustrated because, boy, anybody can walk in and make a flip of a change, and people are frustrated, it seems, that we stood up and said, we don't want this. We don't want a variance change because it truly affects the neighborhood. It affects people in this town. We've heard a lot about traffic. We haven't heard nearly enough about the health, in my opinion. I work in healthcare. It makes me shake inside when we think about what could potentially be happening here. Well, we don't know yet because we don't go through the plans yet until the variance happens. But once that's settled, then we can roll out the rest of it and question it. He's not going to buy this if this gas station isn't allowed. Who here would pick blueberries at a gas station? It's putting lipstick on a pig. It is not appropriate. It is a neighborhood setting. It is a rural street. We've talked about that a few times. Forget about the traffic. Think about our health. Think about the happiness of the people in your community. That is what we're asking you to do. A variance is very powerful, and we leave it up to you to make that decision.
Well, just make sure everybody's spoken. Is everybody who wants to speak at least have gone up once in? All right.
Mr. Chair, I only need about 30 seconds. This goes to comment.
No, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, that's why I waited.
So fast, we'll give you. That was
So
great.
Jerry Kazanjian, 29 Elizabeth Road again. Two people prior spoke about maximizing profit. In the petition, the petitioner cites the Wolfman case, and the Wolfman case was distinguished by the Massachusetts Land Court in Guinea versus Consoli. I can provide the citation later if you want. And that, let's see, Massachusetts Land Court ruled that the applicant, quote, failed to submit sufficient evidence at trial, subquote, where the developer failed to link the requested variance to a Section 10 hardship and left the appeals court with the impression that he merely sought to maximize his profit, something that does not constitute substantial hardship under General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10. So I think, as this being a quasi-judicial body, that Massachusetts Land Court ruling is pretty directive and instructive. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Awesome. Sure. You want to? I'll give it 2 minutes.
Well, okay, just to wrap it up,
Yeah,
you heard, the board's heard a lot. You don't really need to hear a lot from me.
No, you gotta go.
I'm sorry.
So,
So,
we
just
might be a quasi-judicial, but we're not.
Again, Attorney Avini for the DiCarlo folks. Folks, I gotta tell you, I'll end this the way I started it. This project does not make sense for this intersection. Doesn't make sense for this neighborhood. Doesn't make sense from what you've heard from this great body of people. I do a lot of land use and planning. I can tell you it's been a number of years since I've seen this kind of turnout. That speaks volume about how it's gonna impact this community, right? So I'll close with this. Back when they looked at this in 1972, the Mass Department of Community Affairs in the DACA report said the following about use variances. In part, it is a use variance which is the greatest source of danger to the integrity of the zoning process, while at the same time being the most difficult to justify legally. And then all the lawyers in the room will know Professor Bobowski in his treatise on land use, who said use variances, at least since the adoption of modern zoning, are greatly disfavored. And the reason for that is it's an abrogation from zoning. They're asking you for an abrogation from zoning. There's a reason why this town set zoning this way. And when you hear about things on the other side of town, well, the gas station on the other side of town for a purpose, because when the zoning was drafted, the agricultural zone was established, and now they're saying, forget about it, right? And, the cases that are numerous talk about one thing. No one has a right to a variance.
Correct.
That's all I have.
Just to let you know, in my opinion, it is a very, very, very high standard in order to grant the variance. If you read what it necessary, it's very difficult, and it's very difficult for a purpose, because the town has said when they made their plan on how things are zoned. So they presented their case on why it should be allowed, and a lot of you, I was very impressed with the amount of research and knowledge and professionalism that you delivered, a great deal of information on why you believe it should be denied. So the next step in this process is no one else in the public is going to come forward, then we're going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Once we close the public hearing, that's it. We can't hear from the public. It goes to the board. It goes to discussion.
We can speak to them, we can ask questions, but there's no yelling out. You guys, I gotta say, it's been a great audience. No, really, thank you, because it's been very respectful. Jerry, you spoke so fast, it was awesome. That's the stuff that we really appreciate everybody coming out, and it's important. And like I wanted everybody to understand, the three of us, it is our neighborhood. When people talk about going up and down West Elm, West Main, we live there. He lives on West Elm, so we get it. And so, and I'm sorry if it seemed like I was being flippant, but some of the things that people were saying were just throwing stuff out, and I just wanted to just clarify that some of these things can't happen. And to his point about the variance, that it is a very, very high standard. And this could happen, a couple other times or whatever happens. But usually it's just people asking for 3 feet so they can put a deck on the back of their house. That's what we're usually dealing with.
Gentleman wants to speak.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Gary Haynes. I live at 2 Sunset Drive in Millbury, Mass. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Janice Haynes, at 280 West Main Street in Hopkinton, Mass. Right next door to where this gas station / country store. Can I speak? Sure. Kathy and Al, worked for you guys for years. I appreciated all the time I spent over there working for them. I want to bring up a couple things, with especially in consideration to the water storage facility right across from this gas station. Now, this gentleman's a civil engineer. You're gonna have to put a fire suppression system here. Yeah.
So
Oh,
you have to
oh,
talk to the chair. The other thing-
could you ask this gentleman if he's going to have to put a fire suppression system in his gas station?
Neil, are you comfortable with him asking questions on behalf of his mother?
Who has been a taxpayer here
No, I
for
understand.
50
And
years?
That's and she's
As a
good friend.
non-resident, you don't have the right.
Thank you, okay. So, and then, yeah, and then if I may, but getting into the fire suppression and all of
Yes.
that would be the fire department.
I understand, but it might help this board. You may not have the infrastructure to sustain what they need.
It's not, you can ask them, but,
Through us, what is it, what question do you have?
I'm just curious if the said developer knows what the water pressure is at the bottom of that storage tank if they were to have a massive fire on the property.
if I may, being an engineer, and I did that, I'm a builder also.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't use a fire suppression system, they would be using a chemical fire suppression system.
Sure. But what if the fire department had to come and put out a fire?
Well, it would be the same thing as your mother's house and my house, which,
Okay. 4,000, 50 or 60,000 gallons worth of fuel is the same as a wood structure. Okay, good enough. That's fine. So I've noticed on their, I guess, conceptual drawings, a secondary entrance just adjacent to Janice Haynes' driveway. What would be your plans, what would be their plans on getting tanker trucks in and out of the grounds without driving over private property to do so? It sure does, but you guys are the first step.
right, but our step is completely different, constraints.
Okay. No problem.
If it
Yeah.
goes further, the planning board.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Say hi to your mother for me.
We'll see how we go. So, at this point, I make a motion to close the public hearing. Oh, I want to include everybody. I don't want anybody to feel left out.
Vincent Corsini at 4 Barber Road. The lawyer over here made a point, but my simple way of thinking is, if I can summarize what he said, in my way of thinking, is not changing, and as you pointed out, anything, once it's granted, can become whatever it is. They can, once it's granted to allow the variance to go commercial, they can build anything they want.
Not anything. It still
Well,
has to
okay,
be within the confines of what they're
The
asking.
uncertainty
In what we limit it.
that
if they
is-
Get it. Let me just, because I want to
Go
make sure, because I think I may have misspoke a little bit, or, just going to gentlemen over there's things. So they're limited to, they're asking for a filling station in a store. So it'd have to be an auxiliary use to those things. If the variance was granted for that particular purpose, then it'd have to be a different type of store, a different type of filling station. It'd have to be related to those, and they'd have to get approval again to further it. So,
I view it still as a lot more uncertainty when it is granted, as opposed to agricultural or residential. We know what you get with that. When it's granted, you can sell it and somebody else can come before to find another use, and there's so many other uses in commercially zoned properties. Therefore, that's detrimental to the abutters. Once you grant that ability, that uncertainty does that alone.
But they would also need a use variance again.
yep,
So it would be all over again.
yeah. No?
Yes.
Might I just suggest that if you were gonna consider the variance, that you conditioned the variance for exactly what we talked about, so they wouldn't have to have any concern that it was anything other, and that it would have to be, you could ask for an acceptable fiscal impact statement. You could ask for us to do traffic studies. Everyone seems to be concerned that the planning board or that the Conservation Commission or that the fire department or that the whatever board is not going to take action on things. So if the board felt more comfortable conditioning the variance to things that you've heard here, if they're scared of tanks that are in the ground, which, by the way, don't leak 80% of the time anymore, the old single-wall tanks were problems. There are double and triple wall tanks today, and they also put tanks out of the ground today. You can also get tanks where you build a big cement revetment, and you can put the tanks inside of them. The closest one to us is down by Walnut on 126 there. But you could make it conditional upon anything if it made it more comfortable.
Yeah, sir.
Quickly, Keith Benson, 11 Barber Road. I mean, I think Mr. Meehan seems like a man of his word, and I think he said earlier in the meeting that if thousands of people don't want this gas station, then he won't build it. And I think we've shown that thousands of people don't want the gas station.
Anybody else in the public? Okay.
Mary Plummer, I live at 295 West Main Street. I've lived there for 40 years. And what is the allotted amount of time for the O'Connors to show that they cannot sell this property as residential property and then seek this variance? Or Mr. Meehan is seeking it for him. It's only been since May of last year that they closed their business. And there was a house on that property that was torn down at one time, that was across from the water tower. So how much time do we give somebody to sell their property? Like Andrew Amato had stated, it took them many years to sell their property. I ask. It's only been 1 year since Alan and Kathy closed shop. And the data, they didn't show the data, the realtors or anything like that coming in.
I'll ask a board member. Sean, do you have a thought about what you would have been satisfied with as far as?
Yeah, I don't think there's a standard as an amount of time per se. However, in my opinion, there hasn't been sufficient evidence presented that there's been rejection of any offer or no offers on that property.
That's what I was thinking
So
as well.
At this point, in my opinion, there's no evidence in front of me to indicate that there's a financial hardship.
An opinion from a realtor, a brokerage, something that said, hey, in my opinion, this is the value of the house. It doesn't have much value as a residential for X, Y, or Z. And there was little or no offers. I think what Sean was talking about was something tangible that said, hey, we tried, it was on the market, we listed it, and it doesn't really not viable as a
And
property
and
that's
that is
ill.
that was my question, because at one time, there was a house on this property. Water tower that everybody says it's bad.
So I think that, something like that, I think, talking about where, you know, MLS listing, it was on the market for X amount of days type of thing. I think that's what Jerry kind of referenced to as well, that it showed a good faith effort to try to sell it, and because of a lack of ability to sell it, a hardship is created. That type of thing. So it only goes, again, that doesn't mean it's defunct. If that happens, then we're going to grant the variance, but it's part of what Sean addressed in the very beginning, the questions he had in the very beginning, and I think a lot of people, by their reaction, seem to support that.
And I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, but one of the other things I want to point out, we keep comparing it to the sale of the Amato Farm. The Amato Farm was a very large parcel of land. It wasn't just the little store that was in the front. That became that whole condo development that's partly in Hopkinton and partly in Upton. So that's why, you know, when you're talking about selling tons and tons of
I'm
acreage.
just highlighting that it does take
Yeah.
time to sell
And
a
but
parcel of
your
land.
point, what that timing is, you know, if you know, or if they have any evidence or numbers to show us that, then what we can ask. But
That would be part of the findings
yes,
that we base our decisions on.
Thank you.
thank you. You got to come up. You were just hiding back there.
Okay, Bob Bidet, 60 West Elm Street. 2 years ago, according to Patch.com, 85 Realty went to the Milford Zoning Board of Appeals to buy the property where the old Alamo restaurant was, or the building is still there in 109, for a new gas station and a car wash. So let's say the variance comes through at 290 West Main Street. What is to prevent 85 Realty doing a lot of business, selling a lot of gas, moving a lot of food, to say, you know, the O'Connor's property right next to it, we're going to buy them out, we're going to offer them some money and put our car wash right there. Because a car wash, as I'm sure you know, is a great business to have with a gas station. Otherwise, you wouldn't try to put both businesses in the same property. So what would prevent that happening, going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, saying, you guys gave me the variance on the corner lot, why can't I have a variance on this lot?
It's car washes are only allowed, actually not even allowed downtown anymore.
Yeah.
Town meeting passed that no car washes allowed in Hopkinton at this point.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a variant thing, it's just not allowed in Hopkinton.
Okay, but
That's
what would prevent the applicant from buying the O'Connor's house, where the house is, and expanding that business?
They would have to come back here again, because that's a residential parcel again.
But again, it's turning a residential neighborhood into a commercial neighborhood with houses all around, and it just does not fit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public? All right, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Any discussion on the motion? Should we do a roll call, or?
Yeah.
We'll do a roll call? In person? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The public hearing is closed. Okay,
Might as well just wrap it up and,
so you want to continue the,
yeah, I make a motion to continue. Make a motion to continue the hearing to have the available dates you sent you.
10/23. So,
The next available meetings are 11:13 or 11:20. Are you guys available?
John, are we gonna do this live, or are we gonna do it at Zoom?
Yeah, I think we should do it live again.
Yeah.
Yes?
Quick point of order. I don't, your bylaw says a 100-day clock from the time the application was filed, so I don't know where they're at in that timeline. I just want to make sure that.
It was,
Because they cut it, they stopped and they restarted the clock.
So I just want to make sure that that 100 days is being paid
Yeah.
attention to. That's what your bylaw says.
The 100-day, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll take the earliest possible date to
11:13. So folks, we're gonna continue the hearing to 11:13. That's our next available date. The other ones are already booked up. So we'll try and, I'll talk to John, but we'll try and get it here again, or whatever space, public hearing, so we'll have enough space for everybody. But at that point, the public hearing portion of it's closed. So it'll just be
Just deliberation.
just deliberation and questions to the applicant. Okay?
But to that, again, I'd really like to thank everybody for coming out. It was, the decorum was wonderful, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the comments. It really, it helps us with our decisions.
Do I give this to you to give, do they enter?
All right, so we have to fill this out. Oh, no, we didn't.
No, okay, so I make a motion to continue.
Okay,
Yes.
so you made a motion to continue. I need a second.
Continue the public hearing.
I need a second. Second. Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second to continue to 11:13.
Second.
You
I made the
made the motion, Jim seconded it.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes, 11:13.
Make a motion to close then.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to close.
Second?
I think it's kind of common.
Any discussion on the motion to, no, to adjourn?
Adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Application. It has
Yeah.
Adjourn?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Of adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned.